Chapter 1022. Monday was the big day for the evaluation of the blackboard announcements. The school required 6 teachers from each grade to form a panel of judges. For example, the first grade judges would evaluate the second grade's blackboard announcements, and the second grade judges would evaluate the third grade's blackboard announcements. Therefore, in the end, it was the 6th grade teachers who evaluated she and the other first grade's blackboard announcements. The other students were fine, but she and Du Yuqian were in charge of this matter, and Lu Xiaoyu, who often empathized with she, felt the same way. The 3 girls were extremely nervous. Every class was filled with fear and trepidation, as if they were worried that the judges would suddenly visit. Lan Xian, on the other hand, was relatively calm. She even comforted her 3 friends. What's there to be afraid of? I went to look at other classes' blackboard announcements, and they weren't good at all. Ours is better. Hearing Lan Xian's words, she heaved a sigh of relief. However, Du Yuqian said with a frown, "But what if the teachers don't like our blackboard announcements and like other people's? What should we do?" That's right. When she heard this, she felt uneasy, and her little face looked very conflicted. During the break, she took out the colorful shuttlecock from the drawer and pulled Lu Xiaoyu and Lan Xian with her. They were going to meet up with Sister Yu Xiaowei downstairs to play shuttlecock for a while. This was a small activity that the girls liked to play. However, at this moment, Chan Yuxuan ran back noisily and shouted, "They're here! Those teachers are coming! They're in the 4th class next door!" She suddenly panicked. She quickly stuffed the shuttlecock back into the table as if she was worried that the judges would see it and leave a bad impression on them. "I'll go tell Sister Xiaowei." Lu Xiaoyu knew that she was concerned about the evaluation on the blackboard, so she enthusiastically jumped up from her seat, said goodbye to she, and ran out. As usual, she sat obediently in her seat and stared at the door of the classroom. After a while, the little girl saw Teacher Li Ruolin walking in with a book in her hand. Not long after, a group of 6 adults also appeared in the corridor outside their class, chatting and laughing. "He's here." She's obsidian-like beautiful eyes were also filled with many different emotions at this moment. Excitement, anticipation, nervousness, worry. Ms. Li Ruolin walked out with a smile and started chatting with the visiting teachers. She didn't know what she said to them. A group of people walked through the corridor and came in from the back door of the classroom. They looked at the blackboard at the back of the classroom. "You have to look at the blackboard report." She's little head turned around. Like most of the children, she sat in her seat and looked at it nervously. Lu Xiaoyu, who had returned at some point, was kneeling on the chair with one leg. Her whole body was pressed against she's shoulder as she looked at the teachers nervously. The 2 talkative little girls didn't even dare to breathe loudly at this moment, let alone talk without restraint. On the other hand, some of the more courageous male students, such as Chan Yuxuan, mischievously went up and pretended to be behind these teachers. Then, he winked at his deskmate, which attracted some laughter. Why are they doing this? The teachers are going to be angry." She couldn't help but purse her lips and mutter softly. She was very dissatisfied with Chan Yuxuan's performance and her heart was filled with worry. The teachers of the 6th grade were not much different from the teachers of the 1st grade. There were older teachers and young female teachers who were about the same age as Li Ruolin. They smiled at Li Ruolin and walked to the front of the blackboard. Like the other visitors, their attention was immediately attracted by the large cartoon chalk drawing on the blackboard report. "This is quite interesting." A few of the teachers laughed in admiration and chatted with each other. "What is this? Ding dang? Doraemon?" There was a short story at the side, which they finished at a glance. Unlike the children, such a simple story didn't surprise them too much. They only took a cursory look and understood the setting of the cartoon character. "Doraemon, the idea is quite interesting. Ms. Li, the students in your class are quite impressive. The drawing is not bad either." Li Ruolin smiled and explained, "The father of the literature committee member in our class is a writer. He has written many fairy tales. This was his idea. The child just copied it by himself." Was it really drawn by the child? Some teachers didn't believe it and asked suspiciously, Such a big drawing, can a first-grade child draw it? Li Rulan also thought that some teachers might raise doubts. After all, Xi-Xi's performance did surprise her a little. It was normal to be suspicious. Not to mention a first-grade child, there were probably not many children in primary school who could draw such a big piece of work. This was indeed drawn by the child. Her father gave a lot of guidance. Last Friday, I saw with my own eyes that the child drew the outline under the guidance of her father. The next day, her father brought her here and asked me to borrow the classroom key to guide the child to finish the drawing, Li Rulan said. I still recognize the parenting method of this parent. He has been cultivating the child's abilities in all aspects, and the child is very smart. In the dance competition last December, she even won first place in the lower grade group. I see. Then this child is really quite outstanding. Most of the teachers still had a little doubt in their hearts. After all, seeing was believing. They had never seen Xi-Xi draw, but they still chose to believe Li Rulan's explanation. They couldn't frame a child for no reason, so they all laughed. However, a younger female teacher seemed to have thought of something. She frowned for a while, then suddenly raised her head and looked at Li Rulan with some surprise. Ms. Li, the one who won first place in the lower grade dance competition last year, isn't it that? She suddenly realized that her voice was a little agitated and had a bad influence. She quickly lowered her voice and said, I remember, isn't the child of that big star, Yang Yi, in your first grade? Is she in your class? Although the school didn't publicize the existence of Xi-Xi, and wouldn't use Xi-Xi as a publicity stunt, and even help to inform the teachers to keep it a secret and not affect the child's normal studies, the teachers still paid attention to the news in private and gossiped in the office. The media had already exposed Xi-Xi's school, and Yang Yi had once mentioned that Xi-Xi had won a dance award in the school. The public might have forgotten, but how could the teachers, who shared the glory of being in the same school, forget? After the female teacher whispered this, the other teachers all looked at Li Rulan with interest. Some teachers even couldn't help but turn to look at the children in the class. However, they wouldn't be able to recognize Cici like this. Yes, it's her, but teachers, please don't say anything. The students' parents hope that the child can have a quiet learning environment. Li Rulan smiled and whispered, Understood. It's really her. So it's his daughter. No wonder the drawing is so good. The teachers smiled. Although they didn't speak loudly, they completely believed Li Rulan's words and were no longer as doubtful as before. Indeed, in their opinion, how could the daughter of a big star not be good at drawing? In fact, even if they didn't mention Xi-Xi, the teachers were full of praise for the blackboard bulletin of the first grade, Class 3. After a while, Li Rulan called Xi-Xi and Du Yuqian over. She put her hand on their shoulders and introduced them to the teachers with a smile. This is our group publicity committee member, Du Yuqian, and this is our literature committee member, Yang Shi. The two children are in charge of the blackboard bulletin this time. Well done. Your blackboard bulletin is neat and beautiful. It's really good. We're just saying it. Other than this ding-dang, which is very interesting and full of innocence, the poem you copied is also very good. You have to remember this line of the poem, if you don't work hard when you're young, you'll be sad when you're old. It means that you have to study hard at your age. You can't wait until you're old to regret it. This language teacher, who was probably a language teacher, said earnestly. The handwriting is very good. I feel that after reading so many blackboard bulletins, the best handwriting in the first grade is your Class 3 and Class 9. Class 9's handwriting is also not bad. It's a little similar to the handwriting you have here. It's very delicate. The teacher's praises made Cici feel both surprised and happy. She didn't expect to receive such a high evaluation. However, she also felt that it was strange. Why did it seem like all the teachers were looking at her? Of course, these were all small problems. She quickly put them to the back of her mind. In the face of so many teachers, the two little girls didn't have their usual eloquent appearance. They could only stay by Teacher Li's side and smile happily. We still have a few more classes to look at, but overall, your Class 3's blackboard bulletin is very good. You can wait for the results of the evaluation in the afternoon. The leading teacher made a conclusion and said to Li Ruolin with a smile. Then, they all left the classroom of Class 3. There were some spoilers in this. Li Ruolin's eyes were full of joy, but she didn't dare to tell the little guys in advance. After all, the dust hadn't settled yet. So, she just encouraged Shi and Du Yuqian, and then went back to the office with her book to prepare for the next class. Seeing Teacher Li leave, Shi breathed a sigh of relief. She ran back excitedly and hugged Lu Xiaoyu and Lan Xin. The teachers praised us. They also said that Nan Xiaoyu's handwriting is good. Hee, that's great. Cici, who could finally smile without losing her elegance, didn't know that after those teachers left, they were still evaluating her as though they hadn't had enough of her. The child of a big star is really well raised. She's so cute, polite, and multi-talented. A teacher sighed with emotion. Someone immediately echoed, "Isn't that so? I also want a daughter like her. Look at the way she smiled shyly just now. How beautiful. She didn't even show her teeth. She's elegant, shy, and cute." The organizing committee member next to her is also very cute. But when she smiles, her lips are a little upturned. She's not so good-looking. You don't say. I often watch Yang Yi's micro-broadcasting and see how he educates his children. I learned a lot. Chapter 10:23. In the evening, in an SUV parked at the school gate, Yang Yi was chatting with Mo Fei with a smile. Suddenly, from the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of two small figures walking out of the school gate with cheerful footsteps. His heart moved slightly, and he deliberately said to Mo Fei calmly, "Honey, let's make a bet." "Bet on what?" Murphy asked, puzzled. Why did he suddenly change the subject? "Let's bet on whether she can win an award in the Blackboard announcement this time. If I win, you'll listen to me tonight. If I lose, I'll listen to you tonight, okay?" Yang Yi suddenly remembered that Murphy had a competition tomorrow, so he changed his mind and said, "No, I Am a Singer will be recording tomorrow. Let's change the bet to next Monday." Hee. Murphy obviously understood what Yang Yi meant. She was thin-skinned, and under her fair skin, her cheeks suddenly blushed. However, although she was blushing, Murphy was not shy like a little girl who had never seen the world. She looked at Yang Yi suspiciously and said, "What kind of wishful thinking are you planning? It's obvious that you're going to win this bet, and it's obvious that you're going to win no matter what. Who would want to play with you?" Yang Yi said seriously, "How is it obvious that I'm going to win this bet? Shi and the others have so many classes in the first grade, and only 3 classes can win the final prize. How can you be sure that she will win the award?" "It's obvious that she will win the award. I've seen her picture on the Blackboard announcement, and it's very interesting." Murphy snorted proudly, unmoved. The more she spoke, the clearer her thoughts became. "I think you must have gotten some information. Did Shi's class teacher secretly tell you that she won the award? Or, did you secretly contact Shi's class teacher?" The jar of vinegar was overturned. "I know, Teacher Li is young and beautiful." Murphy seemed to have almost dragged herself into the pit. The sour taste in her voice almost made Tong Tong, who was sitting in the car and playing by himself, faint. "How could that be? Okay, I'll admit it. I saw Shi and Xin Air coming out." Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he quickly confessed, "When I saw them smiling so happily, I guessed that they must have won an award." As Yang Yi spoke, he rolled down the window and called Shi and Lan Xin over. This time, their cars were parked on the same side, so they didn't need to cross the road. Of course, Murphy wasn't really jealous. Yang Yi usually went in and out with her, so how could he have time to think about other things? Therefore, after hearing Yang Yi's confession, Murphy immediately put away her jealous expression and raised her head proudly with a smile. Hee, I knew it. You're too cunning. I won't bet with you." Shi and Lan Xin ran over, talking and laughing, and got into the car. Before Yang Yi asked, or even before he sat down, she couldn't wait to stand up, lean forward, and put her arms around her father's neck. She asked sweetly, "Papa, guess what we got on the blackboard announcement?" "Yes, let him guess first." Lon Exine was beside Shi, but she sat down, reached out to close the door, and shouted with her loud voice with a smile. Yang Yi just wanted to turn his head, but Shi, who could finally laugh without restraint, quickly pressed her father's face. "Oh, don't look at me. Papa, guess first." "Papa's guess. There may be other classes that did better than yours, but yours is not bad, so I think you should be the second." Yang Yi thought for a while and said with a smile, "With Shi's performance, how could Yang Yi not know what they should be?" He purposely said that just to tease this little girl. "Oh, no." She cried anxiously. Lon Exine was also unhappy. Before she announced the answer, she rushed to shout, "No one is better than us, we are the best." "Is it really the first place?" Murphy asked with some surprise. Yes. She couldn't help but say seriously, "Papa, Mom, let me tell you, we really got the first place." Teacher Lee was super happy. She took the certificate back in the afternoon and stuck it on the back for us to see. "It's just that our names are not on it," Lon Exine said regretfully. "This is an honor for our class." She turned around and said to Lon Exine, "Teacher Lee said it." In the car, Shi and Lon Exine had been talking about the experience of the judges today. The two little girls were so happy about the collective award that it was as if they had won it themselves. They chattered and laughed all the way. After returning home, during dinner, Murphy thought of the arrangements for tomorrow and said to Shi, "Mom will accompany you to pick a beautiful dress tonight. Tomorrow night, Mom will record a program at Zhongnan TV station. After school, you can go with Papa. When you get there will be a place for you to change. Don't worry. By the way, remember to bring your homework. If you don't start so early tomorrow, you can do your homework in the lounge." "Okay. Let's go there and watch Mama sing." Cici, on the other hand, was very interested and said with delight, "By the way, there will be a host sister from the TV station in the lounge to accompany us. Remember to greet her. If she asks you a question, don't ignore her. The situation in the lounge may be shown on TV." Murphy said with a smile, "Of course, Mom is also reminding you. Mom knows that you are a good child and won't ignore others, right?" She was stunned at this moment. Her eyes turned as if she was thinking about another problem. "Papa, can we not go to the TV station?" She pouted, looked at her father, and begged. Not going to the TV station? Wasn't she very happy to see her mother sing just now? Murphy was confused by her. "Why don't you go again?" She sat on the chair, moved her buttocks, twisted her body, and said coquettishly, "Oh, I don't want to go." "But it's all set. When I asked you before, you said you wanted to go. Moreover, if you don't go, Papa can't go either." "How can that be?" Murphy frowned slightly. To be honest, Murphy was not sure. She had seen the list of singers invited this time. They were all good singers. Their fame might not be as good as the popular Murphy now, and most of the singers were not very active now because of disputes with their management companies, or because they did not have any new works in a few years, or because of personal reasons. But whether they were popular now or not, they were the ones Murphy learned and imitated in the past. One of them was even a female senior that Murphy looked up to when she first debuted. These people's singing skills were not necessarily worse than Murphy's. After all, the entertainment industry in this world was too developed. Countless outstanding talents poured in, and there were also former gods who were buried. If Yang Yi did not go to the scene to support her, Murphy would not be confident. "But I don't want to go." She pouted her little mouth unwillingly and said with her little head lowered. Yang Yi, who was listening to the conversation between the mother and daughter, saw that Murphy was a little anxious, so he reached out his hand and motioned for her to stop and let him speak first. "Do you not want to be on TV?" Yang Yi said to Shi with a smile. As soon as he spoke, the atmosphere suddenly eased a lot. "Dad knows that you lost a tooth, so you don't want others to see it, right?" The little girl pursed her little mouth and nodded slightly. She still did not look very happy. Then we don't want to appear on TV. After I finish my meal, I'll call your Uncle Hong and ask him to make some adjustments. Our resting room is divided into 2 areas. One is for filming, and the other is for filming. Yang Yi said softly, "You can do your homework in the area that can't be filmed and watch Mom sing. Then Dad will be in the area that can be filmed, because Dad will record some applause for Mom. Anyway, you won't be on TV. Is that okay?" The little girl looked at her father with a little surprise, and seemed to be a little moved. "Actually, let me tell you, Dad thinks that you're beautiful now. Don't be so unconfident. Our Cece is a little princess that everyone loves. A tooth is nothing. You are still beautiful without it." Yang Yi leaned over and whispered in Shi's ear deliberately. Shi's unwilling little pout disappeared, leaving only a happy smile. She shrunk her neck and said, "Then Dad, I can't be on TV." "Well, Dad will pinky swear with you. I promise that no one will film you. I will keep it a secret for you." Yang Yi laughed. Chapter 1024. Tuesday finally arrived. Chow Yaoli and He Yimin rushed from Zhongqing Media University in Tingshan District to Binhai District early in the afternoon. Like the other public judges who had been notified to participate in the first episode of the show, they had dressed up meticulously before coming to the TV station. The 2 girls looked youthful and beautiful, with extraordinary temperament. Chow Yaoli and the girls arrived early. After queuing for a while, it was their turn to sign in, get their number tags, tickets, and meal vouchers. After they came out, they looked at the long queue behind them and couldn't help but click their tongues. He Yimin exclaimed, "So many people. Isn't that so? 500 people, and we don't even know how many teams to sign in. How long is this going to take?" Chow Yaoli saw that there were many middle-aged people in the queue and complained about the arrangement of the program team. However, as if they had heard their words, when they went to the lounge to wait for their arrangements, they heard that the program team had sent more people to arrange the teams according to age groups. At 5 o'clock, a staff member informed them to go to the canteen of Jiangnan TV station for dinner with their meal vouchers. This was considered a small benefit for free labor. Chow Yaoli and He Yimin laughed and complained about the way the program team did things. Of course, they didn't care. After all, the 2 girls signed up to be public judges because they wanted to listen to the singers sing live. They could listen to songs for free and get close to the stars. What was the point of asking for so much? However, dinner was indeed an unexpected surprise. This was because although Jiangnan TV station's cafeteria was hired by the program team to make individual meals for the judges, China Star Production and Jiangnan TV station were very generous. They made it into a semi-buffet, with sumptuous dishes for the judges to choose from, and the taste was not bad. "It's delicious. It's 100 times better than our school's canteen," He Yimin said excitedly to Chow Yaoli as she ate. "Yeah, this is the first time I know that this kind of mechanical canteen is not worse than the small restaurants outside. This is so enjoyable," Chow Yaoli said enviously. "I want to work at Jiangnan TV station after graduation." "You don't want to stay in school? Didn't you say you wanted to continue studying?" He Yimin asked in surprise. "No, I'm just saying." Chow Yaoli smiled and said, "How can I be tempted by such delicious food? When I come to Jiangnan TV station, how can I be raised like a little pig?" The 2 of them chatted and laughed as they ate. However, after a while, an intellectual woman who looked to be about 40 years old and wearing rimless glasses also sat beside them with a plate. He Yimin glanced at him. He looked like a successful person, but he actually came to participate in the public evaluation. She couldn't help but find an opportunity to chat with him. What surprised He Yimin and Chow Yaoli was that this middle-aged woman was actually an overseas Chinese from Maple Leaf. She had emigrated overseas. "Sister Kong, are you back for a vacation?" "No, you came back specially to participate in this program?" He Yimin asked in surprise. The middle-aged woman surnamed Kong smiled and said, "Yes, when I was abroad, I often watched domestic programs. I heard that Qin you also came out to sing this time, so I specially applied for the public evaluation. I didn't expect to pass the screening, so I hurried back to listen to him sing. Qin Yu was a very popular domestic singer in the 1990s. At that time, he was also a big idol singer. However, he had been silent for many years. Although he still participated in some programs or held solo concerts, he really didn't have much influence in the music industry. He Yimin and Chao Yaoli only knew about Qin Yu, but they didn't know much about him. Therefore, He Yimin asked in surprise, "Sister Kong, was Qin Yu really so popular in the past? You actually came back from Maple Leaf." Sister Kong smiled and said, "You are still young and haven't experienced my era. Qin Yu was very popular in our era. Besides, he sings very well. You'll know when you listen carefully later." The chat with Sister Kong was just a small interlude. After Chao Yaoli and He Yimin finished their meal, they were quickly led into the recording hall by the staff. The singers who were rehearsing just now also went to eat. Now, the public judges came in early to receive a simple training from the program team. At the beginning, the stage supervisor told them some things to pay attention to. Perhaps he was not satisfied with the stage supervisor reading the script by the book, so Hong Yumin took the microphone and spoke to them personally. First, and most importantly, you have to know when to applaud. Hong Yumin simply blurted out. He talked to them endlessly. Our program is divided into 3 parts. The first part is the performance of the singer on the stage. When the singer goes on the stage, our lighting technician will use the backlight, so you can't see who they are. But it doesn't matter. Please remember that since they were invited to this stage by us, they must be the best singer in the Chinese music industry. At this time, please don't be stingy with your applause. As expected of a famous director who could handle a big scene, Hong Yumin spoke with assurance. His voice was rhythmic, and it aroused the enthusiasm of the audience. He Yimin and Chao Yaoli couldn't help but respond from time to time, shouting, "Yes." During the on-site training, there was a sudden commotion among the judges who were sitting near the entrance. Everyone, including Hong Yumin, turned their heads to look in that direction. They saw Yang Yi, who was wearing casual clothes, standing there with a little boy in his arms. Next to him stood a little girl holding his hand. The little boy was in Yang Yi's arms, so they couldn't see him clearly. On the other hand, the little girl was surprised to see so many people there. Previously, when she came to play with her father, it was empty. She was blinking her beautiful big eyes and looking at the audience in amazement. Chao Yaoli and He Yimin could see her clearly. "Wow, it's she." He Yimin couldn't help but excitedly tug on Chao Yaoli's sleeve and whisper, "Yang Yi and Murphy's eldest daughter, I can finally see her in person. I went to their coffee shop a few times before, but I didn't see her. I really like she. She's so obedient and sensible." Chao Yaoli was slightly calmer. She only whispered to He Yimin, "What are they doing here? Didn't they go to eat?" In fact, Yang Yi had just arrived. He brought Xiaowu to pick up Cici, who had just finished school. He hadn't called Mo Fei yet because he thought that Mo Fei was still rehearsing, so he came directly to the scene to find her. He didn't expect that the rehearsal would end so early, and his arrival was accidentally recognized by the audience next to him, which directly interfered with Hong Yumin's training class. Hong Yumin didn't mind. He even smiled and pulled Yang Yi over and said, "Since you're here, say a few words to the audience. You're the creator of the show." Yang Yi couldn't refuse such kindness, so he asked the staff he was familiar with to take care of Shi and Tong Tong. Then, he walked up to the stage with the microphone. "Actually, I don't have much to say. Director Hong has already said what needs to be said. I just eavesdropped a few times, and Director Hong said it quite well." Yang Yi's words caused the audience to chuckle softly. "But since I'm here, I want to emphasize that this show is absolutely authentic. The process of voting, counting, and announcing will all be monitored by the comrades from Zhongqing's notary office. Moreover, we are also pursuing the ultimate enjoyment of music. Therefore, I hope that everyone will remember our live rules. However, don't mind it too much. As long as it doesn't affect others or the singers, just treat it as if you're listening to a song in a concert hall. Do whatever you feel comfortable with." If you feel that it's exciting, you can clap. If you feel that it's not exciting, you don't have to clap against your will. In short, enjoy the music. Yang Yi said with a smile. Amidst the cheers of the audience, Yang Yi hastily wrapped up. He smiled and said, "Okay, I'll stop here. The two kids are still young, so I have to go and take care of them. Otherwise, our staff won't be able to handle it." In the audience, Chow Yaoli and He Amin couldn't help but laugh along with everyone else. After being so close to Yang Yi, they were pleasantly surprised to find that Yang Yi was also such a down-to-earth celebrity. He's a billionaire and a celebrity. He Amin looked at Yang Yi's back as he left with the kids. She sighed in Chow Yaoli's ear. "Now, he looks like an ordinary friend. He's so friendly. I'm really envious of Murphy for being able to find such a good man." Chapter 1025. During the recording of the show, the celebrities' dinner was nothing special. They were so busy that they could only eat lunchboxes in the waiting room. Luckily, the lunchboxes provided by Jiangnan TV station tasted good. But even so, it was still not as good as Yang Yi's lunchboxes. That's right. Murphy had secretly prepared a special meal. In her lounge, the lunchboxes sent by the staff were put aside. Mo Fei and Cici were sitting around the coffee table, talking and laughing while eating the hot food happily. Yang Yi was drinking his soup and looking at them with a smile. Tong Tong had an early dinner. He was fed by his father at home before he came over. The little boy was full of energy and could not stay in the waiting room. He was exploring the unfamiliar environment and ran over to pull his sister's ponytail. Brother, don't pull my hair." Cici turned her head angrily. Just as she was about to teach him a lesson, the little fellow giggled and ran away with his short legs. Knock, knock, knock. At this time, someone knocked on the door of the waiting room. Yang Yi got up and opened the door. It was Jiangnan TV station's host, Xiao Dong. He let her in and told the cameraman behind her, "Stop filming now. We are eating." The host, Xiao Dong, was also a famous show host in Jiangnan TV station. She was assigned to be Murphy's manager. Not only Mo Fei, but every singer was also equipped with a temporary singer agent. After all, the show needed a large number of scenes of the singers on the front stage performing and the backstage singers' reactions. Most singers were relatively introverted, and they were not as open-minded as variety show hosts. So with a host for each singer, the atmosphere would be more lively, and the backstage would not fall into a dull and cold state. Of course, this was also a win-win situation. Jiangnan TV station could also use this opportunity to let their hosts show their faces on such a big show. So when Xiao Dong entered the waiting room, she started shouting and praising the food Murphy and the rest were eating. "Wow, is this the food made by Brother Yang Yi? It smells so good. Micro-broadcasting told me that Brother Yang is the head chef at home." Mo Fei had already communicated with Xiao Dong during the rehearsals in the past 2 days, so it was not the first time that she had met him. So at this time, she also smiled and said frankly, "Yes, it's all made by him. My cooking skills are just so. No matter how much I learn, it's still not good enough." When she saw an unfamiliar big sister come in, she was a little embarrassed to continue eating, so she secretly ran to her father's side. Yang Yi was sitting on a single-seater sofa. The space was a little narrow, but she still tried her best to squeeze in with her father and sit down. Yang Yi brought Shi's small bowl over and whispered to Shi with a smile, "It's okay, you can continue to eat." "Papa, who is she?" She asked her father in a low voice. "It's the host sister that I mentioned yesterday," Yang Yi said. She remembered what her mother said yesterday and quickly hid her head in her father's arms. "Is this she? She is so cute, but why did she hide when she saw me?" Xiao Dong heard the commotion and asked curiously. "It's okay. She is afraid of the cameras. Her teeth fell out a few days ago, and she is embarrassed to show her face to others." Yang Yi laughed. She heard Dong Xuebing's words and quickly raised her head. She covered her father's mouth and shouted, "Ah!" You can't say it. Okay, okay. I won't say it. Yong-yi raised his head and smiled. But don't be afraid. Dad just told the photographer that he can't take photos of us now. The recording had not started, and Xiao Dong had only come over to greet them. She chatted with Yang-yi briefly and praised Shi and Tong Tong. After that, she found an excuse to let Murphy eat in peace. Yang-yi felt that it wasn't right for Cici to always worry about her teeth. After dinner, Yang-yi thought for a while and went to the dressing table to do some makeup while Shi was doing her homework. Are you going to put on makeup too? I thought you don't usually put on makeup? Mo Fei was talking to her son for a while. At this moment, she raised her head and saw Yang-yi doing something at the dressing table, so she asked curiously, "What are you doing?" Yang-yi did not say anything and only signaled her to wait with his back facing her. After a while, Yang-yi walked over to Murphy and smiled at her. Mo Fei was dazed at first, and then couldn't help laughing. Haha, oh, your teeth. How did you get them? Yang-yi and Murphy whispered to each other as they did not want to disturb Shi's homework. After they chatted for a while, Murphy also went to the dressing table to do her homework. If they are going to prank each other, they will do it together. After a while, Yang-yi and Murphy walked over to Shi and watched her do her homework. But both of them did not say anything. When Cici saw her parents coming over, she couldn't help but mumble as she wrote. It was as if she was explaining to her parents about today's homework. Today, Teacher Lu said that I only need to do the 5th question, but I know how to do it. I finished it in no time. Then it's the language homework. Teacher Lee said I have to copy it. Huijia Primary School did not give a lot of homework to the first graders, so Shi finished it in a short while. The little girl turned her head and happily handed her homework to her father. Papa, look, I finished it. However, Cici saw her father and mother grinning at her at the same time. Both of their mouths revealed a black hole in their teeth. The position of the hole was exactly the same as hers, where their lower incisors were. The little girl was dumbfounded. She was stunned for a while before she reacted. Oh, Papa, Mom, why did your teeth fall out? She anxiously grabbed her father's hand and asked, Did little brother hit someone again? Tong Tong was lying on the sofa next to them and was playing with his car toy. When he heard the word little brother, he raised his head in confusion and looked over. Look carefully. Yang-yi chuckled and moved his mouth closer to Shi's eyes. Shi looked at her mother's smiling face, then looked away and carefully observed her father's teeth. After looking carefully, Shi realized that her father's teeth did not really fall out. Instead, there was a piece of black tape on it. Oh, Papa, you're all laughing at my teeth. Shi pouted and said unhappily, I'm going to be unhappy. I'm going to be angry. Yang-yi was dumbfounded. He and Murphy did this to be kind to children with cancer. For example, they shaved their classmates' heads. However, they did not expect that the same method would sometimes backfire. Fortunately, Shi did not really lose her temper. She was just sulking and feeling sad. She said this because she wanted her father to coax her. That's not what Papa meant. Why would Papa laugh at you? Yang-yi quickly explained, Papa is showing you that even if our teeth fall out, we don't have to take it to heart. We have to face it with a positive attitude and show it to others. Then, we can tell them that when our teeth grow back, we'll be as good-looking as before. Shi blinked and looked at her father in confusion. But, if our teeth fall out, we still don't look good. Then Papa will accompany you today. Our teeth all look like they're missing a hole, okay? Yang-yi made up his mind. He opened his mouth and pointed at his teeth that were covered with tape. He smiled and said, Papa wants you to see Papa's courage in the face of difficulties. Murphy looked at Yang-yi in surprise and reminded him, You still have to record the show today. It's okay. You don't have to be like me. Tear off the tape. Yang-yi smiled and said, Today, I'll accompany Shi to lose a tooth. Shi, let's face difficulties together. Okay. Oh, okay. Although she could not understand why her father wanted to do this, she still felt that it was quite interesting. She also knew that her father was not laughing at her. The little girl's mood finally turned for the better. She raised her little head and looked at her father with a smile. Well, the two missing front teeth set off each other nicely. Chapter 1026. While Yang Yi and Cece were glancing at each other proudly and hiding from the camera from time to time, it was soon past 7 o'clock. After nervously touching up their makeup, the recording of the show also began. Murphy was the third singer to go on stage. She was still in the waiting room chatting with the host, no, her temporary manager, Xiao Dong. But as the rumbling sound of drums came from the TV, everyone stopped talking and focused on the big TV hanging on the wall. Shoo! Yang Yi winked at Shi with his left eye and raised his finger to signal her. He was sitting in the non-filming area. Murphy was the main star in the waiting room, and the camera was focused on her and Xiao Dong. That's why Yang Yi could play with the two children. For example, he threw a plastic ball to Tong Tong, and the little guy chased after it happily. Cece was also at the side. She followed behind her younger brother with a smile and chased after him playfully. However, she felt that it was wrong of her father to ask her to be quiet, so she didn't say anything. It was her younger brother who was screaming and playing. Therefore, the little girl was not convinced. She also turned her little head, put up a finger, and shushed her father. Then, she felt a little embarrassed and shrunk her little head, giggling. The big screen in the lounge showed the scene on the stage. Of course, it was not as exciting as the edited scenes on TV. Soon, Mo Fei and Xiao Dong both saw Qin Yu's figure appear on the stage in a colorful light. Although Qin Yu's back was facing the lights, Murphy could not help but exclaim softly, "Qin Yu! Sister Murphy, you recognized him so quickly?" Xiao Dong asked in surprise. Her expression was exaggerated. Compared to Murphy, who was still calm, Xiao Dong's expression was more attractive in front of the camera. "Qin Yu. Before I debuted, he was already very popular." This was not a script, so Mo Fei explained to Xiao Dong honestly. "I admire him a lot. He is my idol." Murphy's real idol was Su Linglong, who sang at the back. Su Linglong was a Hong Kong singer who was active in the Chinese and Cantonese music circles in the 80s and 90s. She debuted in the same era as Murphy's mother, Zhou Mengyu. Of course, Su Linglong was a diva at that time. Her status was incomparable to that of Zhou Mengyu, a small-time singer at that time. However, Murphy felt that after she came to the Chinese music industry, she had also studied the singing skills of Qin Yu and the other seniors very seriously. She also admired the singing skills of these famous people in the Chinese music industry, so it was not a problem for her to call Qin Yu her idol. However, Yang Yi couldn't help but glance over at Yi Zichen's direction. Xiao Dong also said with a smile, "Qin Yu was indeed very popular in the past. I remember when I was a child, his songs were sung all over the streets and alleys, and there were also posters of him in the barber shop. At that time, he was also a very handsome Prince Charming." Murphy smiled and nodded. Yang Yi looked at the television and saw Qin Yu on stage, who was already in his 50s and had an unconcealable oily glow on his face. He couldn't help but think to himself, "I don't think he's that handsome." Although other people's square faces still had traces of being handsome, even if they were handsome, they would still be handsome. How could they compare to the strength of a tough guy's face that had been carved by knives and axes? Qin Yu started to sing. The waiting room fell into silence for a while. Whether it was Murphy, Xiao Dong, or Yang Yi, they were all listening to Qin Yu singing seriously. It had to be said that even though Qin Yu had been away from the A-list music scene for more than 10 years, his voice was still blessed by the heavens. Moreover, compared to more than 10 years ago, his voice was even more vigorous and mature. His singing skills were also gradually improving. He sang an old love song, "If the Heart is Tired," with great affection. Even Yang Yi couldn't help but praise him in his heart. Sure enough, the program team had a good eye for talent. Even without Chan Yijie and the few coaches from China's Voice this season, they were still able to find many talented singers to participate in the competition. When Shi saw that the adults were not talking, she had an idea. She secretly ran over and pulled away her father's crossed arms. Then she sat on the sofa next to her father so that he could hug her with his big arms. She clung to her father's body and watched the TV comfortably. "What's wrong? Are you sleepy?" Yang-yi leaned over to the girl's ear and asked with concern. She shook her head. After a while, she pulled on her father's shoulder and asked him to move his head closer. She said softly, "Because there's nothing to play with. I'm almost sleepy." "It's okay. Mommy's performance is coming up soon. She'll be the third to go on stage. Let's wait and see Mommy's performance, okay?" Yang-yi smiled and said softly to the girl. Tong Tong was playing with a small plastic ball on the floor. After playing with it for a while, he realized that his sister was not beside him. He raised his head and looked around. The little guy realized that his sister had secretly gone to occupy his father. How could this be? At this moment, Chin Yu finished singing amidst the applause and cheers of the audience. Next, they were looking forward to the second singer's performance. Of course, Murphy also had to get up and go backstage to prepare for her performance. Yang-yi picked up Shi and put her back on the sofa after he got up. Then he walked over to Murphy and massaged her shoulders. "Come on." Yang-yi smiled and said softly to Murphy, "You're the fattest one in my heart." "Huh?" Murphy turned her head in confusion and stared at Yang-yi with her beautiful eyes. "The best one." Yang-yi smiled and said, "Go ahead and defeat all your opponents tonight." Murphy pursed her lips and held back her laughter. She snorted and said, "No, I heard you say that I'm the fattest one." Yang-yi flatly denied. "How is that possible? I said that you're the best." "Absolutely. You are very cunning. You must have slandered me secretly," Murphy said. "I'm telling you. I will beat you up." Mo Fei also glanced at the camera, hid from the camera, and secretly waved her fist at Yang-yi. But her threat was dispelled by the smile in Dong Xuebing's eyes. Yang-yi was only joking with Murphy, and he had achieved his goal. After joking around with her, the nervousness in Murphy's eyes disappeared. Mo Fei was led to the backstage by Xiao Dong, who had an envious look on his face. The lounge was quiet for a while. However, when Yang-yi turned his head, he saw that the single sofa he was originally sitting on was now occupied by Cece and little Tao Wu. Little Mommy was pulled up by Cece at some point in time, and then the siblings sat together in each other's arms. Cece even imitated the way his father hugged him just now, using her thin little arms to hug little Mommy's shoulders like a big boss. Both of them were still holding back their laughter, and when their father turned around and looked at them in surprise, they started giggling. First, Cece couldn't help but burst into laughter that sounded like silver bells, as if her evil scheme had succeeded, whereas little Swanee was infected by her sister's emotions, and she grinned and chuckled. Without the cameras, she was more relaxed. "You too." Yang-yi shook his head and laughed. He pointed at them and said, "You two play for a while. Dad is going to do something." Chapter 10:27. Mo Fei's makeup artist assistant, Nye Xiaoxiang, who they usually called Xiao Nye, was looking at Yang-yi and the two children helplessly at the moment. If there was one expression that was most consistent with her mood at the moment, it was really face-palming. Just now, when Yang-yi mysteriously said that he wanted her makeup bag, Nye Xiaoxiang had an ominous premonition in her heart. Sure enough, now that Yang-yi had dug out the lipsticks in her makeup bag, he had picked out several red lipsticks and used them as crayons. Yang-yi tried the colors on Shi's blank draft paper at first. When the bright red lipstick was applied on the paper, the color became the same as an X, which didn't look good. Yang-yi even broke one of the lipsticks on his first try. Nye Xiaoxiang's heart ached. If it weren't for the fact that he was her boss, but these lipsticks were the company's property and were also for his wife to use. If it were her own or her boyfriend doing such a thing, Nye Xiaoxiang would have flipped out. However, Yang-yi didn't take it to heart and comforted her generously. "It's okay. I'll talk to Xiaowan later and get you a new set." Yang-yi didn't care about Nye Xiaoxiang, whose heart was bleeding. He realized that he couldn't write on paper, and the effect was too poor. Hence, he changed his method of painting on a mirror. This lounge was actually a modified ordinary room. The decoration was very beautiful, but there were still some small flaws. For example, the full-length mirror could only be placed next to the makeup table because it was leaked during the design. Of course, this was a safety hazard. After Yang Yi and the others arrived, they put away the full-length mirror and placed it in the corner, afraid that Tong Tong or she would accidentally knock it down. However, the full-length mirror came in handy now. Yang Yi turned it over and placed it on the ground. Then, together with she, they used lipstick to write and draw on it. Tong Tong also came over to join in the fun. Watching the show on TV was very smooth and fast, but during the actual recording, there were still some small delays in the middle, so by the time the second singer finished singing and Murphy went on stage, a long time had already passed. Therefore, when Yang Yi and she were busy with the painting, Murphy had just started singing. After a while, Xiao Dong returned and saw Yang Yi and the children preparing the surprise for Murphy. She was also surprised. She called out to the cameraman, "Hurry up and film this. This is a good material." Yang Yizheng was sitting on the sofa with the two little guys, listening to Mo Fei's singing while wiping their hands with wet tissues. The red lipstick stuck to their hands, and it was not easy to wipe it off. Of course, this is not a problem and will fade after a few days. Yang Yi wipes their hands because he does not want them to get dirty on their clothes. Yang Yi had told her not to film the children, and Xiao Dong hesitated for a while. She looked at Yang Yi cautiously and asked, "Brother Yang Yi, can we ask you and the children to film the process of you drawing this thing?" Yang Yi smiled and replied, "No need. You all can film Murphy's reaction later. But actually, I feel we don't need to film too much behind-the-scenes footage. We should focus on the live performance. This is a singing show and not a reality show. Don't put the cart before the horse." Of course, this is only my suggestion, and we still need to see what director Hong thinks. Maybe he will make it into behind-the-scenes footage. Although Xiao Dong did not film the children, she still wanted to film Yang Yi. She and Yang Yi sat on the sofa where she and Murphy were sitting earlier. They faced the camera and listened to Murphy sing her masterpiece. "Why are you not close to me when you are in love?" Listen to the sound of the sea crying. On the TV screen, Mo Fei, who was wearing a simple but elegant black dress, held the microphone, gently raised her head, and affectionately sang the climax of "Listen to the Sea." Xiao Dong opened her mouth exaggeratedly and exclaimed softly, "Wow! Sister Murphy's voice is so charming." Yang Yi obviously didn't know how to cooperate. He nodded his head and seemed to acknowledge with a sound. Of course, this is also the time for Xiao Dong and the other professional hosts to show their worth. Xiao Dong smiled and asked, "Brother Yang Yi, what do you think of Sister Murphy's singing today?" "It's okay. One of Mo Fei's characteristics is that she's very steady. This is also thanks to her practice at home and in the studio, so she sang like usual today." Yang Yi smiled and said a little modestly, "Her singing is so good, and it's only okay?" Xiao Dong exaggerated. "Brother Yang, you are so strict." "No. Don't say that. I feel the effect of watching it on TV might not be fully reflected. It should be better to sing it live." "Indeed. Our live equipment is very good. If you all have the opportunity to sign up for our panel of judges, you will feel that this is a concert hall level experience." Xiao Dong nodded and said, "Of course, we had used the best technology to give the TV audience the best experience." Yang Yi's answer is still not enough. Xiao Dong continued to dig holes for Yang Yi. "Brother Yang, what rank do you think Sister Murphy will get tonight?" "It's hard to say. After all, the panel of judges is of different ages." Yang Yi laughed and said, "But Murphy is the best in my heart." "Wow!" Xiao Dong exclaimed. But in his heart, he was thinking, "I am being fed dog food." Even though they were talking so much in the waiting room, they were actually just recording material. A lot of content would be edited out of the program broadcast on TV. It was very possible that the final scene shown to the audience would only be a scene of them gasping in amazement in the waiting room. It was just a song, so it didn't take long for Mo Fei to finish singing. Mo Fei came down from the stage and was about to go back to the lounge in Xiao Dong's welcome. The next singer should be teacher Su Linglong, right? I saw her waiting outside just now. Murphy asked Xiao Dong as she opened the door to the waiting room. Clap, 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 clap. Suddenly, there was a round of applause in the waiting room. Murphy was surprised to see Yang Yi and Shi clapping happily to welcome her back. Tong Tong, who was sitting beside Dong Xuebing, was surprised to see Dong Xuebing and Dong Xuebing clapping. Dong Xuebing did not understand what Dong Xuebing meant when his father told him to clap. But he still followed Dong Xuebing and clapped happily. Mom, Mom. But at this time, Tong Tong's voice was overpowered by his sister's voice. Cici, who couldn't wait any longer, jumped excitedly beside her father. She giggled and shouted, Mama, you sang so well. You are my idol. Thank you. Mom is also very happy. Murphy did not react to Shi's last sentence. She thought she had learned this phrase from Yang Yi and bent down to give Shi a hug. No. Mom, look over there. She did not want to hug her mother. She pulled her mother's hand and pointed to something beside her. Mo Fei turned his head in confusion, and when he saw it, he was stunned. Beside the door, there was a full-length mirror with some words and drawings written on it with red and purplish lipstick. Murphy, 3, Red Heart. You are the number one in my heart and also my idol. Love, Mr. Young. Mom, I love you too. You are my idol. She. The little girl's idol was obviously written by imitating her father. The words were written very big and some of the strokes were very unnatural. Mom, although I don't know how to speak, I am Tongla. You are my idol too. Signature? The words were obviously written by Yang Yi. This guy actually used a cute tone. The signature next to it was a paw print. Obviously, it was Tong Tong's little paw. Murphy's nose twitched as she caught a whiff of the faint fragrance on it. Murphy could not help but turn around. She was touched and looked at Yang Yi in annoyance. Why did this guy use lipstick to create such a scene? Of course, Murphy was well aware of the reason. The word idol appeared so casually. How could Murphy not guess Yang Yi's little trick? She was still very touched. Yang Yi and the two children had suddenly come up with such an interesting surprise for her. It felt good to have the support of her family. However, Murphy saw the desire in Yang Yi's eyes. Her heart skipped a beat and a naughty idea appeared in her mind. Chapter 1028. Yang Yi finished drawing and cheering, so he stood there with a smile, waiting for Murphy's response. He thought to himself, I've already said so many times that you're my idol. Shouldn't you at least reply that I'm also your idol? This kind of jealousy seems a little childish, and it looks like he's been infected by Murphy's previous appearance. Could this be the legendary couple's appearance? The more they get along, the more similar their personalities become? Under Yang Yi's eager gaze, Murphy did not do as he wished. Instead, she smiled and accepted his blessings. Then, it looked like she had no intention of returning the favor. You really know how to cause trouble. Let's watch teacher Su Linglong's performance. This is a rare learning opportunity. Murphy smiled and held Yang Yi's hand, pulling him back to the sofa. Then, she asked Shi to sit down with her. That's not the response I wanted. Yang Yi shouted in his heart. But now that there were other people around, he could not flirt with Murphy. He could only suppress the depression in his heart. Of course, this was not a big deal, so Yang Yi did not take it to heart. At the recording studio of I Am a Singer, Chow Yaoli and He Yimin were listening to Su Linglong's performance. Today, they had really broadened their horizons. Originally, before the recording, Chow Yaoli and He Yimin saw the list of singers. They felt that among the singers on stage today, Murphy was the only popular one. Although they still liked Murphy and her songs very much, it seemed that after comparing them, they could not help but criticize in their hearts. Isn't this show a little too biased? Could it be that it was specially set up to serve as a foil to Murphy, this red flower? But after listening to the singers' performances, Chow Yaoli and He Min no longer had such thoughts. Whether it was Qin Yu and Su Linglong, who had been away from the A-list singing industry for a long time, or the other second and third-tier singers who had not been famous since their debut on this stage tonight, they all exploded with superstar singing abilities. They were actually on par with Murphy. In fact, everyone seemed to be very strong. Under the backdrop of the live environment and sound equipment, Chow Yaoli and He Min both received the ultimate enjoyment of music. Sure enough, I am a singer. These singers are the real treasures of the music industry. After listening to their songs and listening to the concert videos of those idol singers, the difference is like heaven and earth. After He Min came back, she lamented in her WeChat moments. She also wanted to post micro-broadcasting, but she had signed a non-disclosure agreement, so these words could not be said publicly. Her WeChat moments were a little better. Of course, this was something that would happen in the future. Now, Chow Yaoli and He Min were still listening to the songs in the hall. At the same time, they also excitedly imitated the other audience members, deliberately exaggerating their sighs, intoxicated, and touched expressions. Because they wanted to be on camera. This was a little trick that Chow Yaoli and He Min met Sister Kong, who they had met during the meal before, when the director gave them a break and went to the bathroom. Coming to the TV station to record a show, how can you not fight for some opportunities to be on camera? If you don't have a scene for the whole episode, wouldn't you have come for nothing? Sister Kong smiled and said to these thin-skinned young people. Indeed, everyone had vanity. Even the usually serious Chow Yaoli wanted to be on TV, so that he could brag in front of his family and friends. Therefore, she could not resist the temptation and foolishly acted with He Min. Of course, their emotions were still real. They were indeed intoxicated by the songs, but it was all shown on their faces. The recording of the show took longer than expected. It was already 9 o'clock, but they were only halfway through the recording. Of course, this was a normal thing, as celebrities often delayed recording until midnight. However, Shi and Tong Tong could not wait any longer. After playing in the lounge for the whole night, Tong Tong was so sleepy that he fell asleep in his mother's arms. Shi was also about to shower and sleep, as she had to wake up early to go to school tomorrow. Therefore, Yang Yi took the two children and left the TV station early to go home. Mo Fei still needed to record the public voting, announcement of the rankings, and other scenes. She didn't know how long she would be busy, so she could only arrange for the company's driver to pick her up. It was past 12 o'clock at night. Yang Yi was still in his study drawing the original manuscript of Ding Dang's comic. In the villa, only his study was still brightly lit. Shi and Tong Tong were sleepwalking in their own rooms. The two little rascals slept peacefully, regardless of whether their mother was back or not. After an unknown amount of time, Yang Yi's ears twitched. He heard the sound of a car outside, followed by the sound of a key unlocking the door. He went out to greet her. Sure enough, Murphy was back. Why aren't you sleeping? Murphy was a little tired, so she smiled and asked Yang Yi when she saw him. Aren't I waiting for you? Yang Yi helped Murphy take off her coat and hung it on the coat rack. He said gently, "You must be tired, right? Go take a shower. I prepared a tub of hot water for you. It will be more comfortable to soak in it." You didn't even ask me if I was eliminated. Murphy hugged Yang Yi's arm and said as they walked upstairs. Why would someone be eliminated today? Don't we have to wait until the next round for someone to be eliminated? Yang Yi asked with a smile. I didn't fool you. That's right, you're the one who created this program. You know it better than me. Murphy said with some regret. Then guess, what place will I get tonight? First place. You will always be number one in my heart. Yang Yi shrugged his shoulders. I knew you would say that. Murphy said with some satisfaction, but I'm not number one. I only got third place today. My opponent's strength is a little strong. Moreover, teacher Su Linglong is really popular. She got first place. Today is just the beginning. In the next round of the competition, you won't be able to sing your own song. That's when the real competition will begin. Don't worry, I believe you will be able to surpass me. Yang-yi comforted. Murphy took a long time to take a shower. When she finished drying her hair and returned to bed, it was already 1 o'clock in the morning. The current Murphy is no longer the Murphy from 2 years ago. She is no longer the same as when she was in Tianmei Entertainment, rushing to various jobs. Her whole person is like a Titan toy, working non-stop, even staying up late and sleeping until dark the next day. Now her work and rest is very stable. She usually goes to bed at 11 o'clock. But today, Murphy was so busy that she didn't sleep until 1 o'clock. She was so tired that when she climbed into bed, she yawned again and again. However, the happy thing is that when you are tired, there is still someone waiting for you. Yang-yi pulled Mo Fei, who was leaning over lazily, into his arms and let her lie down on his chest. Murphy rubbed her head against Yang-yi's broad and thick chest and closed her eyes comfortably like a cat. "Hubby," Murphy sweetly called out. Tonight, are you still waiting for me to say something?" Murphy raised her head, her eyes flashed with a sly smile. "What is it?" Yang-yi was a bit strange. He forgot about that matter. "You are my idol." Murphy giggled, moved closer to Yang-yi's ear and whispered, "I know you want me to say this." "How do you know?" Yang-yi asked in surprise. Humph, do you think I don't know what you're thinking?" Murphy proudly said, "Narrow-minded hubby." "How am I narrow-minded?" Yang-yi complained. "I know you are jealous. You have been talking about your idol all day. I just casually told Xiao Dong that Qin Yu is my idol. In fact, I didn't mean that at all." "You are jealous." Mo Fei giggled. "You have been talking about your idol all day. There is no such thing. How can I be jealous?" Yang-yi refused to admit it. "All right, I will stop teasing you." Murphy lowered her head again, yawned and said, "Go to sleep." Yang-yi also felt sorry for his wife. He knew she was tired, so he gently rubbed her head and replied, but Murphy did not go to sleep. She finally managed to stay quiet for 2 minutes before she started wriggling again. Like a worm, she moved up and got close to Yang-yi's ear, as if she wanted to bite Yang-yi's ear. She said softly, "But to be honest, hubby, although I don't say it in front of others, you're really my idol. You're so good at writing songs and singing. I've never seen such a good person before." Mo Fei's words, as well as the itch in his ears, made Yang-yi have the urge to rise up in anger. He reached out and hugged the naughty Murphy, kissed her smooth and soft cheeks, and gritted his teeth. "You seductive little vixen. If it weren't for the fact that you're really too tired today, I really would have shown you that other than being petty, I'm a big man in every other aspect." Murphy giggled and said, Okay, let's sleep." Chapter 1029. There were often articles that said, "In March, all living things come back to life and are full of vitality. It is the best time to go on a spring outing." When the second class ended on Friday afternoon, Li Ruolin, who had just returned from a meeting, stopped the children who were eager to go to the hobby class and announced the news with a smile. The school is planning to hold a spring outing for the 1st to 3rd grades next Saturday. That means that the 1st grade students will participate in the spring outing together with the 2nd and 3rd grade brothers and sisters. Li Ruolin smiled as she introduced the event to the children. Because Huijia Primary School has a large number of students in each grade, it would be too big of a commotion if the entire school were to move out all at once. It would be very difficult to manage, so it is divided into 2 age groups. Before Teacher Li finished speaking, the class was suddenly in an uproar. Originally, the children were pretending to be very serious and obedient as they sat in their seats to listen to the teacher. Now, they were all excitedly turning their heads to tell their friends about the event. Some of the more excited ones even jumped up from their chairs and waved their arms excitedly. She was the same. She carefully listened to Teacher Li's introduction, and her eyes lit up. She turned to Lu Xiaoyu and grabbed each other's little hands. She said excitedly, "Wow, little you, the teacher said that the 3rd grade brothers and sisters will also go with us." Yes. And Sister Xiaowei. Lu Xiaoyu reacted quickly and excitedly said, "We can go on the spring outing with Sister Xiaowei." Yes, 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 yes. She didn't care that Lu Xiaoyu had stolen her words. She happily nodded vigorously with her friends. However, the two girls didn't know that their thoughts were a little too naive. When the time came, the spring outing would be carried out by class. Moreover, each class would have to be in their own grade camp. For the sake of the children's safety, the teachers would watch over them very strictly. It wouldn't be like physical education where the children were allowed to move freely or even mix into other classes to play. Therefore, it was impossible for Shi to leave their class. The idea of Shi and Sister Xiaowei playing together was impossible. Regardless of this, Li Ruolan still had something to say. Our spring outing this time is at the Tingshan Botanical Research Institute and the Rivertown Development and History Museum in Tingshan District. In the morning, we will play at the Botanical Research Institute. We will follow the tour guide to understand different flowers and trees and learn some scientific knowledge about flowers. In the afternoon, we will have a picnic at the beautiful botanical garden at the foot of Tingshan. Every child must remember to bring your lunch and snacks. Li Ruolan smiled. Of course, she would explain the details to the parents in the group. However, many children's eyes lit up when they heard the word, picnic. Among them, the most typical was Lan Xian. Like Hercules, she raised her two small fists and shouted excitedly in her seat, "Ha ha, ha ha! Xian, why are you so happy?" Her deskmate, Liao Chanqian, asked in confusion. "Because she will bring delicious food with her." Lan Xian said proudly, "Her father is very powerful. He will prepare a lot of delicious food for Shi. I can eat with her then." Li Ruolan continued, "For this spring outing, because we are in the lower grade group, the school will invite 3 parents to participate in the spring outing for management and safety reasons." 3 parents? In fact, after entering primary school, the students' spring outing was basically not accompanied by their parents. This was because it was a good opportunity to train the children's ability to be independent. For example, in public primary schools, their spring outing was just the teachers bringing the children to play. However, Huijia Primary School situation was a little special. After all, it was an aristocratic primary school. The parents spent a lot of money to send their children here. Most of the children's families were either rich or respectable. Naturally, the parents felt that the children were much more precious. Of course, this was a derogatory term. Especially for the lower grade children, how could the parents let the small children go out with the teachers to play? Therefore, after the parents' committee discussed among themselves, they proposed to the school's board of directors to let the parents accompany them. The school's board of directors would not casually let the parents' committee direct their work. They still consider the education itself, and then carefully considered the opinions of the parents' committee. After many negotiations and discussions, finally, a few years ago, the school's board of directors and the parents' committee reached a solution that both sides agreed on. That was to say, the lower grade students' spring outing could bring 3 parents with them in each class. There were not many. Not all children could bring their parents with them. Within each class, they could choose, recommend, or randomly select 3 parents to accompany the children on the spring outing. These 3 parents were not only there to accompany their own children. They shouldered the expectations of other parents and had to take responsibility for the safety of all the children in the class. Secondly, they had to accompany their own children. The subtle thing was that most of the children in the 3rd grade did not want their parents to accompany them on the outing. The children in the 2nd grade had a more balanced response, and many children in the 1st grade wanted their parents to be one of the 3 parents. Children at Shi's age were still very dependent on their parents. "Papa, you must be selected, and then go out with us to play." In the evening, Yang Yi came to pick up Shi and Lan Xian. The 2 girls excitedly chatted with each other and told him about the spring outing. Then she pulled the seat belt, leaned forward, and looked at her father expectantly. Yes, Uncle Yang, you must be selected." Lan Xian also nodded vigorously. Yang Yi felt that Shi's words were reasonable, but Lan Xian also said the same thing. Yang Yi felt a little funny. Xin air, don't you want your father or mother to be selected? Yang Yi asked with a smile, don't you want your father and mother to accompany you on the spring outing? No, I want Uncle Yang to go with me, because you are much more interesting than my father and mother. Lon Xian said confidently. Yes, Papa wants to go. She couldn't see her father's positive attitude, so she said anxiously, Papa, okay? You must go. Little Yu also said that she wants you to go with her. Okay, I will try my best to become one of the 3 parents, and strive to be able to accompany you on the spring outing, okay? Yang Yi had to follow the girl's words and said. She and Lon Xian nodded with satisfaction, and the 2 of them contentedly continued to talk about the spring outing. The 2 girls seemed to have begun to imagine, discussing what clothes to wear, what fun places to go, and the interesting experiences that Sister Xiaowei had told them about when she had participated in the spring outing before. However, Yang Yi, who was driving the car, wasn't very optimistic, because he still didn't know how the teacher would choose the 3 parents to participate in the spring outing. In the evening, in the parent communication group organized by Teacher Li Rulin finally finished her work and came to share the plan of the spring outing with the parents in the group. She also explained the situation of the spring outing in detail to the parents. According to the original practice of many classes, the parents who want to accompany their children to the spring outing have to sign up first, and then according to the situation of the parents who signed up, 3 parents will be randomly selected using the computer's random number function. This is more fair, what do you all think? Yang Yi also received the notice, so he stayed in front of the computer and watched Li Rulin in the group meeting with the parents. Li Rulin said a lot, and finally talked about the selection of the parents that he was most concerned about. Sure enough, it was actually a random selection method. In this way, Yang Yi wasn't sure that he would be selected. Chapter 1030. It seemed that the accompanying parent should be voted on by all the parents, just like in a democratic election. However, Li Rulin had learned from many first-grade form teachers that the results of democratic voting were not reliable at all. There were so many parents in the class who didn't want to go on a spring outing with their children on the weekend. Just like she, many children were crying and begging for their parents to come. If they were to vote, many parents would vote for themselves. The few parents who managed to get votes might win, but the other parents weren't familiar with him. Who would be convinced that he could steal their spot with just a few more votes? In order to reduce controversy, it was better to use the simplest method of random numbers to decide the accompanying parent. Whether or not he was chosen depended on whether his face was fair enough, whether his surname was O or Fei today. Leave it to the heavens to choose. If he wasn't chosen, no one could blame anyone. Thus, as soon as Teacher Li said this, the parents in the SNS group immediately replied in agreement. However, at this time, a long message suddenly popped up in the group. I also agree with the random selection, but I have a suggestion. Can you give a spot to Yang Yi? My daughter is screaming at the side, saying that she must let Yang Yi take them on the spring outing. Yang Yi paused, then focused his gaze and shook his head with a wry smile. This brother Lon, what is he doing? Leaving aside what Lan Hao Kai had said, as soon as he said this, a few people quickly ran out to express their agreement. I also think that Yang Yi is a good choice. It's rare for a parent in our class to be a celebrity. He can sing and dance, and he can tell stories. If he goes, we won't have to worry about the atmosphere in our class. Is Yang Yi here? I think you and Murphy are both suitable. I also support Boss Lan's suggestion. Yang Yi wasn't surprised that everyone could recognize him. In fact, Yang Yi's identity had already been known by the parents in the group at the beginning of last semester. After all, the internet was so advanced now. The media had already reported it a few times. How could the parents not know? Not to mention Yang Yi, even Lan Hao Kai's identity could be found out. After all, some of his parents were in politics and had some power. If other people didn't know that Lan Hao Kai was a real estate tycoon, why would someone deliberately flatter Lan Hao Kai now? Of course, regarding Yang Yi's identity, after experiencing shock, amazement, and other emotions, the parents gradually felt that it was nothing. Even the children of celebrities need to study. Celebrities were humans too. Moreover, they couldn't possibly brag about such things to others every day. Thus, very quickly, under Yang Yi's deliberate low profile and Li Rulan's repeated hints, the parents calmed down and treated Yang Yi as a normal child's classmate's father. At most, when Murphy's record broke last year, they would spam the group chat to congratulate Yang Yi and Murphy. As for the children's side, the parents didn't make a big fuss. They very tacitly maintained an unaffected academic life for their children. It was a little too much. Yang Yi saw that a few parents were speaking up for him, wanting to give him a little special treatment. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and shake his head. "Brother Lan, you've dug a big hole for me." Yang Yi took out his phone and sent a message to Lanzhao Kai on WeChat. Then, he tapped on the keyboard and said in the group, "Thank you everyone for your love, but I feel that it's not fair to leave a place for me. Let's do as Teacher Li said before. We'll choose randomly. It's fair to every parent. We can't set a bad example in front of the children." Yang Yi was also in a difficult position. He himself wasn't a pedantic person. Perhaps for some things, he could still do something. But when it came to Shi's matters, Yang Yi hoped that he could set an example and not leave a bad impression on Shi. Since Yang Yi said so, the heckling parents didn't insist anymore. They left the space and time to Li Rulan, who was collecting the parents' names. Yang Yi reported his name and then took out his phone. Lanzhao Kai sent a request on WeChat to have a video call with Yang Yi. Yang Yi had just swiped open the video call when Lanzhao Kai's complaints hit him in the face. "Brother, what are you doing? I've worked so hard to create momentum for you. Why don't you just accept it and be done with it? Why do you have to do some random number? Do you want to see if God gives you face? I'm telling you, this isn't reliable. Why did you suddenly appear in the group? You usually don't talk much, right?" Yang Yi asked curiously. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "You guys are making a fuss and asking the other parents to give up a spot for me. How can that be?" Then Yang Yi said what he was thinking. "If the other children in the group know about this, they will say to Shi in class, 'It's not fair, your father cheated.' How can I explain it to Shi? So I think, even if I don't get chosen, there's no need to take this risk. Plus, it's bad for the children." Lanzhao Kai thought about it carefully. It was true. He could only sigh and say, "Okay, I'll sign up too. If I get chosen and you don't, I'll let you go in my place. Otherwise, my daughter will be angry with me." "Did Exiner ask you to let me go?" Yang Yi understood and asked with a smile. "Yes." "Why does Exiner like you so much? Sometimes, I even wonder who her father is." Lanzhao Kai said sourly. Yang Yi didn't care about old Lan's feelings at all and laughed loudly. "But, to be honest, I think the relationship between our families is so good, and Exiner likes you so much, I think it's okay for her to call you godfather." Lanzhao Kai said. He simply brought up the old topic and nagged. "Before, you said you didn't dare to overstep your boundaries because you're not as rich as me. Now, between our families, you're the richest one. You can't refuse now, right?" Yang Yi was stunned for a moment, his expression somewhat hesitant. In fact, Yang Yi subconsciously rejected this suggestion because in the online world of his previous life, the word godfather had a very negative connotation. Therefore, Yang Yi didn't want Lan Xian to call him that. But now that he thought about it carefully, there was no such person in this world as Guomei, who disgusted the whole country, so there was no extra meaning attached to this word. He didn't need to care so much. Moreover, Lan Xian and Shi were like sisters. Yang Yi subconsciously took care of Lan Xian as half a daughter. "What's wrong with that?" Lanzhao Kai said so. If he still refused, it would be estranged. "How about this? I think Exiner can call me Daddy Yang in the future. It sounds much better than calling me godfather." Yang Yi said with a smile. Lanzhao Kai saw that Yang Yi agreed and was overjoyed. He didn't care about being called Daddy Yang or godfather anymore. He laughed and said, "Okay, it's settled. I'll tell Exiner." She'll be very happy to hear this news. Lanzhou Kai hurriedly hung up the video call. Only then did Yang Yi turn his attention to the computer. At this moment, the parents in the group were discussing the problem of the random selection tool. So troublesome? Doesn't SNS have the function to randomly generate a number? No, but there's a voting function. Then does WeChat have it? I suddenly remembered that Yang Yi is the big boss of WeChat. Why did they suddenly mention him? Yang Yi was confused. He opened the chat history that had been refreshed to take a look. It turned out that after Li Rulan finished counting the number of parents who signed up, she told the parents that the selection process would continue tomorrow. Why do we have to wait until tomorrow? The parents asked curiously. Because I haven't figured out how to use the software to generate random numbers. A teacher just gave it to me today. Then I have to study how SNS records for everyone to see. For the sake of fairness, I'll just let everyone see my random number generation process. Li Rulan replied embarrassedly. Chapter 1031. After scrolling through the chat history, Yang Yi turned around and saw a lot of people tagging him, asking if WeChat had the function of generating random numbers. There were also a few people making a fuss. We should change our group too. Teacher Li, shouldn't you create a group for the parents of the first grade class 3 in WeChat? You should at least support the parents of our class with their products. This suggestion received a lot of responses. These parents were still young and were at an age where it was easier for them to accept new things. Under Li Rulan's questioning, it could be seen that a lot of them had registered for WeChat. Yang Yi thought for a while and typed on the computer keyboard. Thank you for your support. WeChat is indeed very useful. Also, I can reveal a little. Although WeChat is only available for mobile now, there will be a computer version in the future. It will be convenient for everyone to transfer documents and other needs at work. Immediately, someone laughed and replied, Boss Yang has also made it clear. Teacher Li, hurry up and bring us to change sides. Boss Yang, does WeChat have a way to generate random numbers? Someone asked. WeChat doesn't have this function yet. Teacher Li, you still have to work hard to figure out how to use the software. However, Teacher Li doesn't have to figure out how to record the screen. WeChat has a video chat function, and it supports turning on the camera during group chat. When the time comes, Teacher Li can turn on the phone's rear camera and directly take a picture of your computer interface for us to see. Yang Yi thought for a while and replied, That's not bad. Essence doesn't have such a useful function. The parents below all expressed their agreement. That's right. Video chat. At that time, I also downloaded WeChat because of its mobile phone video chat and the ability to add friends through the phone's address book. It's really useful. When I was on a business trip, I used video chat to talk to my children. Amidst the praises, Li Rulan followed the parents' request and created a new WeChat group. She added all the parents, including Yang Yi, into the group. The parents who hadn't registered for WeChat also did so. However, even with such a good tool, Li Rulan still had to figure out how to use the random number software. She set a time with the parents. After all, some people still had to work on the weekend. In the end, she decided to go online together on Saturday night. She would broadcast the process of the random number in the WeChat group. Yang Yi wasn't free. Tomorrow night was Murphy's concert in Rivertown. Today, he had accompanied Murphy to rehearse for the entire day at Zhongnan's Hongren Fong Music Hall. But he didn't say anything. He didn't have time. He would see what the situation was when the time came. At least he would still have his phone with him. Moreover, he had so many assistants and friends who could help him. On Saturday afternoon, Ding Xiang drove to the residential area of the municipal government in Wuhu district. She was going to pick up Guazi's mother and sister to Hongren Fong's concert in Binhai district. It wasn't that Guazi deliberately made Ding Xiang so tired. Guazi didn't pick up his mother and sister because he really couldn't get away. He was now in the backstage of the concert, nervously rehearsing with Murphy, Yang Yi, Lu Xiaoshu, Mao Chuan, and the others who would be performing tonight. Moreover, Guozian also strongly suggested that Ding Xiang come to pick them up. It was always a good thing to have more contact and show more of her face. However, Tan Huizhen had always had a good impression of Ding Xiang. Seeing that Ding Xiang had arrived early, she asked Ding Xiang to park the car and have a seat in the house. "Little Ding, what kind of tea do you like to drink? Tea guanyin? Or jasmine tea? Do you want some jasmine tea? I think it's better for girls to drink more flower tea. It's good for moisturizing and beautifying. Do you want to try the flower tea from my hometown? It's very famous." Tan Huizhen asked Ding Xiang to sit down. She took care of boiling water and even took out a few tea cans as she asked with a smile. After all, she was from Min province. Although Tan Huizhen was a woman, she also grew up drinking tea. "Auntie, let me do it." Ding Xiang stood up embarrassedly. No, you don't know how to do this. Let Auntie tell you, the art of tea is an art." Tan Huizhen said with a smile. Guozian, who was at the side, rolled her eyes and said with a smile, Sister Ding Xiang, not many people can drink the tea made by my mother. You're in luck today. My mother is really good to you. You have to learn from little Ding. Who wouldn't like a sensible, hard-working, and capable child?" Tan Huizhen reprimanded Guozian. "Look at you, you're usually so lazy. Little Ding, let me tell you, when you're free, you have to guide her in her studies and make her pay more attention. Today, she slept until 10 o'clock and only woke up after 10. She played all weekend and didn't study. Ever since she found out that Ding Xiang was more of a straight-A student than her son, Tan Huizhen had the idea of hiring Ding Xiang as a tutor. However, because Ding Xiang was also very busy with work, Tan Huizhen thought about it and did not make the request. Guozian realized that she had invited trouble and shrank back, not daring to say anything. After teasing Guozian, Ding Xiang was still embarrassed to let an elder make tea for her. She still insisted on standing up to help. "Auntie, although I don't know how to make tea, you can teach me." Seeing that she was so insistent, Tan Huizhen gave up her seat. She smiled and sat on the sofa at the side, guiding Ding Xiang. "Since you want to learn, we'll drink oolong tea today. Oolong tea is more particular. In Min province, drinking tea is not called drinking tea, it's called making tea. If you want to be specific, there are 13 tea arts. The first is called washing hands and appreciating the utensils, which means that you have to wash your hands first and invite the guests to admire our tea set." Ding Xiang listened attentively, and after listening to Tan Huizhen's instructions, she followed Tan Huizhen's instructions. The 13 tea arts actually looked very simple when they were listed out, and most people knew about them. However, when it came to making them, there were many things to pay attention to. Tan Huizhen was also watching Ding Xiang make tea while pointing out some areas where she didn't do well. However, during this process, the more Tan Huizhen looked at Ding Xiang, the more she liked her. Of course, this was only on a master-disciple level. What a smart child! Tan Huizhen secretly praised her. She felt that Ding Xiang was indeed a fast learner. She understood many things with just a little guidance. The seventh art is to seal the teapot. Cover the teapot and lock the tea fragrance in the teapot. Following Tan Huizhen's instructions, Ding Xiang used her left thumb and middle finger to gently pinch the teapot lid. Her index finger gently held it, and she covered the teapot with the Yixing clay teapot lid. At this point, Tan Huizhen's eyes were full of admiration. The action of pinching the teapot lid was something that Tan Huizhen had taught Ding Xiang in the previous steps. Although there was no special benefit to it, it was nothing more than elegance. Ding Xiang did not forget and did it meticulously. The last tasting was not to mention the fragrance of the tea, but the rich fragrance flowed into the hearts of the guests. Chapter 1032. In the evening, the popular quarter music hall in Rivertown's Binhai district was already bustling with activity. Countless fans from all over the country had already flocked there. They lined up excitedly while taking selfies with their phones. Because the tickets were sold online, many fans who had been waiting for Mo Fei's concert for several years were scrambling for tickets on the internet. Whether it was the concert in Jiangxing City or the concerts that had already begun to sell tickets, they had all been snapped up by these enthusiastic fans. As for the second-hand tickets sold by scalpers on the black market, due to the high threshold and the scarcity of scalpers, they were also sold at sky-high prices. But no matter what, when the concert started, the venue was already filled with people. The atmosphere was extremely lively. "Hello everyone, long time no see." When Murphy appeared on stage, her simple greeting was greeted by cheers, whistles, and screams from the audience. The lively sound waves almost overturned the venue. Tan Huizhen, who was watching the concert from the VIP seats below the stage, couldn't help but sigh. So this girl is also so famous. When I saw her last year, she didn't seem like a celebrity. Guozian pursed her lips and muttered in her heart, "The adults are indeed ignorant." Ding Xiang, who was sitting beside them, explained to Tan Huizhen seriously, "Sister Murphy is indeed very famous now. The album she released last year broke many records in the Chinese music industry." Sister Xiaowan said that if it wasn't for the fact that Murphy didn't want to be too tired and didn't want to compete with others, Sister Murphy could totally compete for the title of the top sister in the Chinese music industry. Tan Huizhen nodded lightly. She listened to Murphy's singing on stage and saw the excited expressions of the surrounding fans. She chatted with Ding Xiang. "She does have a way with singing. It sounds very interesting. How does Zi compare to him? If he were to hold a concert, would anyone come to watch?" Although the latter part of her sentence was teasing, Tan Huizhen also looked at Ding Xiang expectantly, hoping to hear some affirmation from her. After all, they were parents. With a smile, Ding Xiang tactfully explained to Tan Huizhen, "Little Gua isn't a professional singer. His main direction is still in film and television, and he also takes part in variety shows. Therefore, we can't use the standard of a singer to measure his current situation. But auntie, if he holds a concert like you said, I think many people will be willing to buy tickets to watch it. After all, Little Gua has a lot of fans now. Many people like him because of his works and the variety show, The Limit Challenge. TSK, if I were my brother's fan, I definitely wouldn't come to his concert. Since his debut, how many songs has he sung? His concert must be very boring." Guozian couldn't help but prick up her ears to eavesdrop, and now she jumped out to argue. "You just can't stand your brother's good side, right?" Tan Huizhen angrily knocked on her head. Not to mention the lively scene, backstage, Yang Yi, who had already changed into a slim-fit suit for his performance, had his makeup done, and had his hair done, was sitting on the sofa in the lounge, holding his phone and waiting for the judgment of fate. Yang Yi had sung for Murphy to warm up the scene, as well as sing with Murphy together, so the order was relatively late. It was not his turn yet. What made Yang Yi happy was that Li Rulin didn't start contacting the parents as late as last night. During the day, she had already figured out how to use the app, so it was only 7 o'clock now. She reckoned that the parents had already finished their dinner, so she couldn't wait to open the group video function on WeChat and gather the parents together. "Papa, you must be chosen. Papa must be chosen." She was a little restless, so she simply paced back and forth. For a while, she propped herself up on the sofa and leaned her little head over to check the phone in her father's hand. For a while, she couldn't help but turn to the other side, pressing her back against the sofa's armrest, and whispering prayers. The little girl had been worried since her father told her about the selection method before going to bed yesterday. She was afraid that her father wouldn't be chosen in the end, and she would have to participate in the spring outing alone. It was fine without her mother, but without her father to lead her, she felt very insecure. Tong Tong crawled on the sofa beside his father, his little butt arching against his father's mountain. He raised his head and looked at his sister, who had been nagging all day. Then, the little guy, who was already used to it, didn't pay too much attention to her. Instead, he calmly took his little truck toy and played with it on the sofa. Finally, the parents in the WeChat group video were all present. Li Rulin turned on the camera and began to film the computer screen with her phone in one hand, while her other hand held the mouse. She operated the computer while she explained. "This is how to use the random number generator. It's actually very simple. Last night, I thought it would be very complicated. You just need to click on it here, and it will pop up a box. You just need to enter the range of the random number you want to generate, as well as the number of random numbers you want to generate. It will quickly give you a random number. Li Ruolin casually entered a range of 1 to 1000, as well as the number of 5 random numbers. This was just for demonstration purposes. Then, she clicked on the confirm button, and immediately, 5 numbers appeared in the originally blank area. After confirming that there were no problems, Li Ruolin opened the registration list that was previously compiled. Every parent was given a number according to the order. Then, she entered 1 to 36 on the small software, and 3 on another blank space. Of course, there were more than 36 children in the class, but not every parent was willing to sign up. After all, there were still some parents who didn't have the time, or some parents who were worried that if they were chosen, they would have to take responsibility for something. The tense and exciting moment had finally arrived. Yang Yi stared at the phone screen with rapt attention. She couldn't help it either. She didn't continue to wander around, but instead crawled over to her father's side. Her small hand clung onto her father's large hand that was holding the phone, and she looked at it expectantly. "We are number 26. If you choose our number 26, or if you choose your Daddy Land's number 32, Daddy will accompany you to the spring outing." Yang Yi's left hand gently patted Shishi's little head as he said gently. While Yang Yi was speaking, the results came out. On the phone screen, in the blurry image, 3 randomly generated numbers were displayed: 7, 23, 29. Yang Yi's voice trailed off, and he looked at the final results somewhat helplessly. Shishi was still staring at the numbers, but even after staring for a while, these numbers didn't change at all. "It's not 26, and it's not 32 either." Shishi turned to look at her father in confusion, hoping that she would be able to get some different information from her father's side. Yang Yi was very helpless, not knowing how to explain this to Shishi. It was true that the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Could she accept a spring outing without her father? "Then, we'll also choose the name list today." In the video call, Li Ruolin compared the numbers on the registration form she had arranged earlier and read aloud, "Number 7's Mama Jian Liuan, number 23's Papa Hong Jun, and number 29's Papa Lu Kong. These are the 3 parents who will be accompanying the children on the outing next week. We'll have to trouble you then." Yang Yi couldn't be bothered to listen to what Li Ruolin said after that. Of course, the video call ended, and everyone resumed typing or voice communication. Yang Yi smiled bitterly, looking at Shi, who was looking at him pitifully, and didn't know how to explain this to his daughter. "Papa, you can't go, can you?" She didn't hear her father's name just now, and she suddenly felt that the sky was about to collapse. Her delicate little eyebrows drooped sadly, and she pulled at her father's sleeve and asked pitifully. Yang Yi sighed softly and said, "Papa also wants to accompany you on the trip. But, what can we do? There were 2 random numbers in the 20s, but they didn't choose us." "But I want to go on the spring outing with you," she sadly muttered, and there were sparkling tears quietly rolling in the little girl's big eyes. Chapter 1033. Cece had wanted to go on a spring outing with her little friends with her father's company. Since yesterday, she had been eagerly waiting for good news. However, the result was not as she had wished. She was very sad and also a little confused. She did not know what to do. "It's okay. You can go and have fun with your classmates. Even though I can't go with you, you still have your teachers. Also, I will prepare a lot of delicious food for you to bring to your teachers and classmates. You can still have fun." Yang Yi comforted her gently. In order to let his sad daughter sit more comfortably, he moved his butt to the side to give Shi some space. However, Yang Yi forgot that Tong Tong was kneeling on the sofa beside him and playing with his little truck. The little guy liked the sticky feeling of the wheels rolling on the leather sofa. He pressed his little hands on the sofa and pushed the little truck back and forth. His little mouth was even mumbling something in an alien language. At this moment, little Momo only moved his little butt forward a little and didn't stick to his father's body. This made Yang Yi ignore his existence. Therefore, while holding Cece in his arms, Yang Yi raised his buttocks and moved to the left. His broad buttocks bumped into little Momo's small and delicate buttocks that did not have much flesh. This earth-shattering collision was like a truck hitting an electric donkey. Perhaps it was because Tong Tong's head was facing the wrong way, but when his father bumped into him, Tong Tong fell forward and almost fell off the sofa. Fortunately, Yang Yi reacted in time. His eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed little Momo's soft belly in midair and scooped him up. The little guy was still dizzy and did not understand what had happened. When he came to his senses, he was already in his father's arms. Tong Tong did not know where the force that bumped into his butt came from. He only felt that he had experienced a whirlwind and it seemed like it was fun. Hee 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 hee. The little guy thought that his father was playing with him, so he happily twisted around in his father's arms. His little mouth opened wide, and his smile was very bright. What a careless little fellow. Yang Yi rubbed Tong Tong's head, smiled, and continued to play with him on the sofa. Then he continued to coax Shi. The little girl had just blankly watched her father pick up her brother. She was in a sad state, so her mind was in a mess and she couldn't move at all. After her brother moved away, she occupied her father's arms again and muttered in a low voice, "But, I'm still afraid. Papa didn't accompany me. We're going to play outside. What if we meet a big bad wolf? Where's the big bad wolf? You are going there to look at plants and flowers. These are all relatively safe places. Moreover, there are so many teachers." Yang Yi said with a smile, "But there will be bad guys." She raised her head and looked at her father. She pouted and said unhappily. She seemed to have become a little childish all of a sudden, just like when she was 4 years old. Her mind was full of the fairy tales that her father told her. But in fact, the so-called big bad wolf and bad guy were actually just excuses. She was not necessarily afraid. Perhaps part of her fear was due to her real feelings, but more than that, she wanted to attract her father's attention. The little girl might be thinking in her heart, "I'm so cute that I might be taken away by bad guys. Papa, how can you give up so easily? You have to accompany me." Yang Yi did not think of Shi's little thoughts. He reached out and touched Shi's neck. Near her shoulder blade, he pulled out a thin red line and a Buddha statue that had been covered by Shi. "Do you still remember this emergency measure that Papa taught you before?" Yang Yi played with the Buddha statue in his hand and said with a smile, "You can pinch it up and down like this. You can contact Papa. If there is any danger, Papa will rush to your side at the fastest speed to protect you." Yang Yi said softly, "So, don't be afraid of bad guys. Moreover, Teacher Li will lead the team. There are so many teachers from the school looking after you." She nestled in her father's arms, holding the little Buddha statue with a sullen face. She did not want to face danger. She wanted her father to accompany her and play with her. What should she do? She was still very sad. Yang Yi said a lot of things. In fact, he also felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, because he also wanted to accompany his daughter to play. He wanted to personally take pictures of the little girl and her friends happily shuttling through the flowers, instead of being cooped up at home and waiting for the teacher to send them pictures. The pictures sent by the teacher are definitely not targeted. Yang Yi complained in his heart. Why don't I drive and follow them? However, Yang Yi thought about it and still felt that it was not good. Rules are rules. He could break the rules, but would others laugh at Shi and say that she had a shameless father? Yang Yi sighed softly in his heart. He could only gently stroke the back of the little girl in his arms and continue to comfort her silently. However, at this moment, his phone suddenly rang. Yang Yi picked it up and looked at it. It was actually Lanzhao Kai calling. Lanzhao Kai also came to the concert today. Although he did not chase after celebrities, Wu Jingjing had always liked Murphy's songs, so Yang Yi left him a few front-row tickets. Lanzhao Kai brought Wu Jingjing and Lan Xian to watch the concert together. Hello. Hello. Sure enough, after Yang Yi picked up, there was a noisy singing and cheering sound coming from the phone. However, he could not hear what Lanzhao Kai was saying. After a while, the call was hung up. Yang Yi looked at his phone in confusion. He wondered if he had pressed the wrong button. However, after a while, Lance Hao Kai sent a message, "Look at WeChat." "Bro, what are you doing?" Yang Yi opened WeChat in confusion. On WeChat, Lance Hao Kai had sent a few messages. Yang Yi had probably turned off the WeChat notification and did not pay attention to it. "Hurry up and send it to Teacher Lee. You can't be overjoyed, right? Hello, are you there? Are you still going to the spring outing?" Spring outing? When Yang Yi saw this, he was even more confused. Could it be that he could still go to the spring outing? Was there still a chance? Yang Yi quickly switched back to the parents' WeChat group and saw the latest message. Lance Hao Kai was actively replying. "I just called Yang Yi. I think he's busy backstage and has no time to look at his phone. However, I agreed on his behalf. I talked to him last night and he really wants to go with his children. It's impossible that he doesn't have time. What's going on?" Yang Yi did not have time to talk. He first looked at the chat history. After flipping through a few pages, he finally understood. There was no special treatment. It was just that when Teacher Li Rulin was talking to the three selected parents about some things to take note of, Lu Kong suddenly expressed that he wanted to give his spot to Yang Yi. In the conversation between Li Rulin and Lu Kong, Yang Yi saw that Lu Kong had not signed up for him last night. He had signed up for his wife. However, now that he had been selected, his daughter, Lu Xiaoyu, was unhappy. She said that she wanted Uncle Yang Yi to go. Seeing this, Yang Yi remembered. Lu Kong. No wonder it sounded so familiar just now. Actually, Yang Yi did not pay attention just now. He was only focused on looking for his own number and name. He had neglected Lu Kong. Now that he connected the name with the person, he remembered that Lu Kong was the father of Shi Shi's deskmate, Little Fishy. He was the traffic police officer who drove her over to play with Shi Shi. Yang Yi did not know that Lu Xiaoyu liked him more than Lan Xian. Her father was usually a little fierce, and her mother was very strict with her. Therefore, Lu Xiaoyu liked Yang Yi more. He was an adult who could make delicious snacks, think of many games, and buy many toys for Shi Shi. Moreover, when Shi Shi was in school, she had chatted with her about how exciting it would be if Shi Shi's father went with everyone to the spring outing. Therefore, when Lu Xiaoyu heard that her mother was going with everyone to the spring outing, and that Shi Shi's father was not going, not only was the little girl unhappy, but she was also a little depressed and sad. With her mother around, this spring outing would definitely be very boring. It had to be mentioned that as a civil servant, Lu Kong was also well versed in the rules of society. Although he did not deliberately seek connections, he still had a faint, positive attitude towards Yang Yi and Lan Zhou Kai's family background. He also hoped that his daughter would be able to maintain a good relationship with Shi Shi. Therefore, when he saw Lu Xiaoyu's attitude, Lu Kong and his wife discussed it and decided to comply with their child's wishes. They decided to give the slot that they had painstakingly won to Yang Yi. Yang Yi did not know that there were so many complicated considerations behind this, but when he saw that Lu Xiaoyu's father had given the slot to him, he believed that Lu Xiaoyu must have played a big role in this. "Shi Shi, Dad can go with you to the spring outing." Yang Yi quickly tapped on the screen and appeared in the WeChat group to respond to Li Rulin and the other parents. At the same time, he happily shared the good news with Shi Shi. Ha! Shi Shi was still a little dazed. She lifted her little head from her father's embrace and looked at him in confusion with tears still on her face. Because Little Fishy's father was selected just now. He told Teacher Li that he would give his slot to Dad. "This way, Dad can go with you to the spring outing," Yang Yi said with a smile. Cici finally reacted. She hurriedly got up from her father's arms and pulled her father's hand. She stretched her neck and opened her eyes wide, wanting to see if the phone was really like what her father said. After a few seconds, Shi Shi's happy and excited voice rang out in the lounge. "Wow, long live Little Fishy, you're amazing. Hee hee, Dad can go with me to play." Chapter 1034. Hee hee, Little Fishy, thank you, and your papa? And your mom? I have to thank your mom. Hee hee, I'm so happy, because I thought my papa couldn't go. Let me tell you, I'm about to cry. I don't want to go to Mom's concert. She's clear and melodious voice echoed in the lounge. When Murphy opened the door and came in, the noisy singing and cheering outside couldn't disturb her at all. Murphy came back to change clothes. Yang Yi stood up and helped her take off her little suit jacket. He smiled and said, "Now it's 1,000 Mile Creek and Little Fish on the stage, right?" "Yes, it's them." "What is she talking about? Why don't you want to go to my concert?" Murphy nodded while looking at she, who was holding her phone and talking on the sofa. The little girl was so engrossed in talking on the phone that she didn't seem to notice that her mother had come back. Tong Tong noticed. The little guy's eyes lit up and he smiled happily. He stretched out his little hands on the sofa, asking for his mother to hug him. Murphy was busy changing clothes. She could only bend down and pick up the little guy. She kissed him on the forehead and comforted him before putting him down. She wasn't talking about you. She was saying that I almost couldn't go to her spring outing. She was so sad. Fortunately. Yang Yi smiled and whispered to Murphy about what had just happened. Mo Fei quickly went into the dressing room to change her clothes. Her muffled voice came from inside, and she seemed to be a little jealous. "You only care about your daughter and left us at home, sigh." Yang Yi touched his chin and thought for a while. He said helplessly, "I can only ask you to stay at home. I can't bring the whole family. It's bad for she. If the place we're going to is fun, I'll take you and Mommy there when you're free." On the stage, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan were receiving the enthusiastic cheers of the audience. This duo became famous on the stage of China's The Voice. But what left a deeper impression on people was their performance of University Days, as well as their past experiences of being scammed and their relationship with Yang Yi that was later exposed in the news. The audience were all fans of Yang Yi and Murphy. They knew that 1,000 Mile Creek Tree was a group that Yang Yi's company was going to promote. So, they were happy to give them some support. Today, we are going to present a new song written by brother Yang Yi. This song will be included in our new folk album that will be released on April 1st. I hope you will like our singing. Lu Xiaoshu held the microphone and said to the audience. This time, the cheers became even louder. It was Yang Yi's work. Everyone's expectations soared all of a sudden. At the beginning, it was a very clean piano prelude without any noise. The beautiful melody was like a flowing spring, nourishing the hearts of all the audience. The noise in the venue gradually died down with this beautiful prelude. It was as if saying anything in the audience would be blasphemous to this song. "Because I dreamed that you left, I woke up crying." Lu Xiaoshu's voice was slightly hoarse, but it was as clear and clean as the northern sky in their original song. With his voice, he hummed the opening lyrics. Suddenly, the meaning of the lyrics and the sadness in Lu Xiaoshu's voice captured everyone's attention. The younger members of the audience, like Guazian, might not have felt anything, but there were many in the audience who were of a certain age and experience. When they listened to this song, it was as if there was an electric current flowing through their hearts all of a sudden. When Miao Chuan raised the microphone and sang, "When the day comes, will you still be by my side, watching those vows and lies slowly drift away with the past?" Miao Chuan's voice was different from Lu Xiaoshu's. Because of his introverted personality, the emotion in his voice was slightly deeper. Set off by these lyrics, it was as if the heart-wrenching power was hidden, but there was a feeling that could be touched. Some of the fans who had similar experiences heard Miao Chuan's voice and seemed to resonate with it. Instantly, tears rolled down from the corners of their eyes. Although this was only a small portion of the audience, their feelings were not exaggerated. How many people once admired your youthful appearance? When the chorus was sung, the mellow taste of the song brewed. It's so nice. Guazian did not know how many people were thinking. She was not the type to sit quietly and listen to songs. When she heard Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan singing, she did not think much of it at first, but now that she was happy, she could not help but take out a light stick, twist it, and shake it. "Didn't you want to wait for your brother to come out before using it?" Tan Huizhen could not help but ask. "It's okay, the life of this light stick is long enough." When he comes out later, it will continue to light up, Guozian said with a smile. Ding Xiang saw that Tan Huijian seemed to be a little anxious, so she leaned over and said, Auntie, don't be anxious. Xiao Guo will come out during the next warm-up. There are about 6 or 7 songs left. Okay. Tan Huijian smiled and nodded. Alright, Sister Ding Xiang, do you know why 1,000 Miles Chuan Shu and the rest did not sing their famous song, University Days? Is it because it's my brother's song? They are too embarrassed to sing? It can't be that bad, right? Guozian leaned her head in front of her mother and gossiped with Ding Xiang. No, because Xiao Gua does not plan to develop in the music industry, this song, University Days, which has not been released before, will be given to 1,000 Miles Chuan Shu and the rest to sing. However, singing University Days in a concert will not cause much of an impact. After Sister Xiaowan, Brother Yang, and Sister Murphy discussed, they decided to let them sing a new song to win more popularity for them. After all, their first album will be released in April. Ding Xiang patiently explained to Guozian. They were still singing on the stage, so they could only lean closer to talk. Oh, I see. Then is Brother Yang making a big deal out of it again? Did he write a lot of songs for 1,000 Miles Chuan Shu and the rest? Guozian asked, still unsatisfied. It's not like that. Ding Xiang smiled and said, other than this song, Brother Yang only wrote a folk song for them. The rest are either original songs or songs that the company bought for them. At this time, Tan Huijian suddenly started gossiping. She interrupted their conversation and said, Yen, I heard you mention University Days. Was it the song your brother sang to that director during his freshman party? Chapter 1035. Mrs. Guo didn't know about the relationship between Guozi and Ding Xiang. She just couldn't help but gossip about her son's past. Luckily, the lights were dim, so she didn't see Guozian and Ding Xiang looking at each other awkwardly. Mom, how did you know about this? Guozian couldn't help but ask. Guozi didn't even tell Guozian about this. Of course, Guozian had seen this report on the internet and learned about it herself. She even laughed at Guozi in front of him. This was before she knew about the relationship between Guozi and Ding Xiang. I saw it on the commemorative CD that your brother brought back for the freshman party. I also learned that the girl he confessed to was the director of Fairy Tale, The Fugitive, and this year's Yuzue, right? Do Yuan Lei? She was indeed his biological mother. Although Tan Huijian didn't want her son to work in the entertainment industry, she still cared about every one of Guozi's works. She even gossiped to this extent. Guozian felt her hair stand on end. She felt that her mother was almost comparable to a private detective. It seemed that if she wanted to find a boyfriend in the future, she had to do it secretly and find someone who kept a low profile. She couldn't leave any photos or put them at home. Otherwise, her mother might find them. However, talking about this topic in front of Ding Xiang made Guozian feel very awkward. Also, as a girl, she could vaguely feel Ding Xiang's disappointment at the moment. Therefore, Guozian said, Mom, don't bring up the past. How many years have passed? My brother was impulsive at that time. He might have made a bet with someone, so he foolishly went to sing University Days. But he has nothing to do with that director do. It's just a work collaboration. Tan Huijian smiled and said, It's good that there's no relationship. I was worried that there would be a relationship. Nowadays, those movies and TV dramas are quite messy. There are rumors all day long, and as long as there's a beautiful girl in the entertainment circle, it's not good to hear about it. She seemed to realize that she was being a little too indiscriminate, so she quickly changed her words and said, Of course, your brother Yang's family is fine. There aren't many celebrities like them who care about their family. Xiao Ding, you have to tell Zi often. Alright, Yang Huan, who is in charge of you, also tell Yang Yi's sister to pay more attention to her image. Don't be tainted by the bad atmosphere of the entertainment industry. Ding Xiang secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Originally, even she couldn't help but feel a little awkward and annoyed, but at this moment, it all disappeared. She smiled and said, "I know, Auntie. I'll talk to Xiao Guo more." Guazian secretly criticized at the side, "Of course, with you watching, Guazi won't dare to mess around." However, this couldn't be said out loud. Guazian saw that Thousand Miles Chuanshu had finished singing on the stage, so she continued the conversation. "Mom, if you don't want my brother to find a girlfriend in the entertainment circle, then what about those related to the entertainment circle? After all, my brother's circle is only so big." This could be said to be a faint hint. Ding Xiang's face suddenly turned red. She also looked at Tan Huizhen with faint expectation. Tan Huizhen didn't think much about it. She denied Guazian's overly one-sided judgment and said, "I'm not saying that the entertainment circle can't do it. It depends on the person. If you're like Yang Yi and Murphy, even if you work in the entertainment circle, there are still celebrities who care about their family. Of course, your brother's personality is more careless. Taking care of his family isn't enough. You have to find someone who can take care of him. You have to know how to live. You said that the housekeeper can do the housework, but you have to know a little about it yourself, right? Yes, you have to know how to take care of your brother's health. You have to eat well and eat healthily." As expected of a biological mother, Tan Huizhen thought a lot. All of a sudden, she listed a lot of requirements for her future daughter-in-law. Tan Huizhen was very happy with her request, but she didn't realize that there seemed to be someone beside her who was very suitable for these requirements. Ding Xiang pursed her lips, and the emotions in her heart surged. However, Tan Huizhen changed the topic and said, "But you said that your brother's circle is small. This isn't a problem. When he grows up, the family can introduce him to someone. If it's a girl who knows him well, then you don't have to worry about him being cheated." Ding Xiang's eyes couldn't help but darken at these words. Originally, because of Tan Huizhen's requirements, the joy in her heart couldn't help but fade a lot. After all, the Guo family was different from ordinary families. Ding Xiang remembered what Yang Yi had said to her before. Guazi was working hard on the road of acting now. He was working hard to become a top star with enough ability to fight for a position with his family. She also needed to continue working hard to get more recognition from Guazi's family. If a relationship was a matter between two people, then marriage was a matter between two families. It couldn't be said that one owed the other. It could only be said that they supported each other. Guazi and Ding Xiang had to continue working hard for their future happiness. The road ahead was heavy and long. Guazi went on stage more than half of the concert. The song he sang was, as expected, the song that made him famous, Fairy Tale. In fact, Guazian had encouraged Guazi to directly sing the song Lilac Girl, P.S., Rong Jiahua's version, when he confessed to Ding Xiang. However, the title of the song was a bit too conspicuous, and it wasn't a hint, but a direct statement. Now it seemed that Guazi and Yang Yi had a discussion, and it was a very wise choice not to sing Lilac Girl. Previously, when they talked about university days, Guazian's mother had already thought of Pian Pian. If he sang Lilac Girl, she was afraid that this matter would really be revealed. The effect of singing Fairy Tale was very good. This song's influence was very wide. The witty Guazi's words of "Let's sing together" immediately aroused the enthusiasm of the live fans. Not only the other audience members, but also Guazian's face was full of excitement. She raised the support sign high and sang loudly, "Since you said you loved me, my sky, the stars have all lit up." Tan Huizhen couldn't stand her daughter's enthusiasm. She smiled bitterly and leaned towards Ding Xiang. This daughter was still calm and steady. When Guazi was singing, Murphy went back to the lounge again. This time, she really wanted to have a rest. She sat on the sofa and drank a drink to moisten her throat. Yang Yi massaged Murphy's shoulders to help her get rid of some of her tiredness. He said softly, "You haven't held a concert for several years. How do you feel now?" "Tired." Murphy leaned comfortably on the sofa, raised her head, and smiled at Yang Yi. She said, "But I'm also very happy. I'm still recovering slowly. After singing so many songs, I feel that my whole body is moving again." She was not the only one who was tired. Tong Tong was also tired. The little guy had just watched TV in the lounge for a while. It was the scene of Murphy's singing. Now, Xiao Ruofeng was nestled in its mother's arms, yawning from time to time. Later, when Murphy went to sing, Yang Yi would coax the little guy to sleep. She was in high spirits. She sat on the other side of the sofa and hugged her mother's arm. She looked very dependent. However, the little girl was different from Tong Tong. She rolled her beautiful big eyes. Obviously, she had other plans. When her mother and father stopped talking, she giggled and took over the topic. "Mom, when you came back to change clothes, I was still on the phone with little fish." "I know. You also said that you didn't want to go to my concert," Murphy said sourly. "No, I'm not talking about that." She had wanted to tell her mother about it earlier, but she missed the opportunity when she was on the phone. At this time, she had been holding back for a long time before she seized the opportunity to talk. Therefore, the little girl giggled and forcibly changed the topic. "Mom, do you know what I said to little fish?" "What did you say?" Murphy could not find a way to vent her jealousy. She could only gloomily follow she's words and ask. "It's a very interesting thing. I thought it wouldn't work, but later, it suddenly became possible because little fishy helped." Cece beamed with joy as she said, "Mama, do you know what it is?" "Let me tell you." She was still showing off. Murphy looked helplessly at the sky and then at Yang Yi. "Are you still going to control your daughter?" Chapter 1036. At Murphy's concert, Yang Yi did not sing any new songs. He went on stage to warm up the crowd and sang a song called "Just Happened to Meet You" that could show off his singing skills. He and Murphy sang 2 songs that they sang together under the crowd's requests. After all, it was Murphy's first concert after so many years. The next day, many media outlets used a lot of space to report on the concert. However, some media outlets expressed that Murphy's intention to promote Chen Lichuanshu's duo was too obvious based on the live audience's reaction. Of course, Chen Lichuanshu's performance of "With You Forever" by Yang Yi was enough to shock the entire entertainment industry. After watching the live video, many people expressed that they would definitely buy and support the song when it was released. This seemed to be Chen Lichuanshu's return to the public's attention after half a year. Many media outlets expressed that although China's The Voice's stage seemed to have great potential to create stars, after half a year, the individual development of the contestants was still obvious. Needless to say, Su Lu, who was the champion of the first season, had become the target of her agency's support. She had participated in many variety shows and was also promoting her new album. The others, like Gu Han, who was once on par with Su Lu for the championship, and a few other contestants, had been active after the night of the pinnacle. However, after half a year, their popularity had waned and they gradually became silent in the entertainment industry that was changing with each passing day. Some media outlets felt that whether it was Su Lu or the other contestants, they were not as lucky as Chen Lichuanshu. Although Chen Lichuanshu stopped in the top 16 and did not achieve much in the competition, they still became the biggest winners of the first season of China's The Voice because of their relationship with Yang Yi. Yang Yi rarely writes songs for artists not under his management and rarely signs new artists. Su Lu's manager revealed that her company had tried to invite Yang Yi for a song but was rejected. However, Chen Lichuanshu was able to sing a new song written by Yang Yi. Moreover, it was a high-quality song like "With You Forever." It is foreseeable that with Yang Yi's support, Chen Lichuanshu will surpass Su Lu one day. This statement was actually a bit far-fetched. After all, only half a year had passed. There was no conclusion as to whose development was better. Furthermore, it didn't mean that without Yang Yi, Su Lu wouldn't have been able to succeed. There were still so many outstanding songwriters in the Chinese music industry. As long as Su Lu's company was willing to fork out money and effort, there was no need to worry that Su Lu wouldn't continue to be popular. What's more, Su Lu's singing path was wider than Thousand Miles Creek trees. She could sing any song and could grasp any genre. On the other hand, Thousand Miles Creek Tree was a folk singer. This path was destined to be lonely and niche. In the future, it was hard to say who would be more popular. After the first concert, Murphy was given a short break. Of course, it was only a short break because she still had to participate in the recording of a new episode of I Am a Singer next week. Her work wasn't too busy, and compared to the days when she had to fly around, Murphy felt that she was much happier now. Furthermore, with a job, Murphy felt that she was more fulfilled. She couldn't stay at home all day. That would cause problems. Although Yang-yi seemed to spend a lot of time with his family, in fact, he also had his own work. Usually, his studio, Hua-yi Brothers, China Star Production, Sahara Publishing, Mantis Shrimp Animation Production Company, etc. These companies had some official business that required Yang-yi's remote command and some documents that required his signature. During the day, when Shi went to school, Yang-yi would take some time out to deal with work issues. On Friday, sometimes in the afternoon, he would go to Sahara Publishing to give a lecture to the newly signed children's authors and provide them with some training. Therefore, Murphy used to feel that Yang-yi's life was more fulfilling than hers. Now, she could be considered to have found a balance between her life and work. She could sing the songs she liked and accompany Shi and Tong Tong. She was in a very good mood this weekend. The day after the concert, which was the last day of the weekend, she took over Yang-yi's position with great interest and personally led Shi and Tong Tong to play a game. Today, we are playing a game called Ball Toss. Do you see the few iron buckets under the drying rack? In a while, we will throw small balls into these iron buckets. Whoever throws the most balls will win. In the sunny courtyard, Murphy stood on the fertile lawn and explained the rules of the game to Shi and Tong Tong. Yang-yi stood next to the drying rack that was moved from under the eaves. He pointed at the iron buckets of different sizes and explained with a smile, "Everyone will have a different target. Hua will throw the biggest one, Shi will throw this one, and Mom will throw the smallest one." These simple props were, of course, made by Yang-yi himself. He used milk powder cans of different sizes, drilled 2 holes, and hung them up with ropes. The big ones could cover Shi's small head, and the small ones were small and shallow, making people feel that if the small balls were thrown in, they might pop out. Naturally, according to the difficulty level, the hardest small bucket was given to Murphy, and the clumsy Tong Tong was given to the easiest big bucket to throw. However, Yang-yi's interruption caused Murphy to be dissatisfied. Today was a rare day that she wanted to actively perform. Yang-yi, this bad guy, why did he always like to steal the limelight? Papa, don't talk. If you want to watch the game, just stand aside and watch quietly. Murphy said angrily. Yang-yi smiled and shook his head. He honestly acted as the referee for today's game. Today, Murphy wanted to save some points in front of her daughter, so she insisted that he play with the children. Therefore, Yang-yi designed such a game for her. However, she still cared about her father. She said sweetly, "Hee Papa, you can play later. We will compete with Mom, and then you can compete with us." The little girl thought that her father also wanted to play with them, but because there were not enough buckets, he gave up his seat. "It doesn't matter. Papa is thinking about other problems now. You can play with Mom." Yang-yi said with a smile. "Papa, what are you thinking about?" She blinked her big eyes and asked curiously. "I'm thinking about our spring outing next week. What kind of fun should Papa think of for you to have a good time?" Yang-yi said with a smile, "Last night, those fathers said that I, as one of the 3 parents, can sing, and can do this and that, so I have to liven up the atmosphere." This was not to fool Shi. Yang-yi was really thinking about this problem. Shi jumped on the grass and played with Tong Tong. She followed her father's words and said, "Papa, you can sing." "Yes, singing, this is a good idea." Yang-yi said with a smile. How could he not think of singing? Yang-yi had a plan. Singing was what they were going to do on the bus. Yang-yi was going to take the guitar and sing with the children on the bus. On the one hand, it could kill the boring ride. On the other hand, singing was the best way to liven up the atmosphere. However, the problem was, what song should they sing? There were many children's songs. Which one was the most interesting one? This was a big problem. Yang Yi was a little embarrassed. He subconsciously looked around. Finally, his eyes fell on Xiao Guai, who was lying on the sunny driveway and stretching. Xiao Guai seemed to feel Yang Yi's gaze. After it finished stretching, it quivered and looked up. "Why are you looking at me?" Xiao Guai felt that its master was looking at it for no good reason. It hesitated for a moment, turned its head, and quickly disappeared behind the house. The corners of Yang Yi's mouth rose slightly. Obviously, he had an idea. Sure enough, this law was right. If you can't solve a problem, ask Xiao Guai. Chapter 1037. Under the children's ardent expectations, the week passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was already Friday night. Because they had to leave early the next day, Yang Yi had to start packing in advance tonight. Except for lunch, he had to take all the things for tomorrow. In the bright living room, Yang Yi pointed to two small backpacks and said to Shi and Lan Xian, who came with them, "This is Shi's backpack, and this is Xian Air's backpack." Lan Xian asked puzzledly, "Papa Yang, why do we have to carry backpacks?" "Because you have to bring some essential items for the spring outing," Yang Yi said with a smile. Lan Xian blinked, pointed to the large suitcase next to her, and said, "But you also have a bag. You can help us carry it. When my father and I go on a trip, we don't need to carry anything for us." What was the use of having a father if they had to carry their own backpack when they went on a trip? It seemed that there was nothing wrong with this. She was also moved by Lan Xian's words. She giggled and nodded in agreement. "Yeah, I didn't take anything either. But there was one time when I took something because we were playing in the zoo in Australia. Then, I wanted to buy some dolls, and Papa let me take them. He was so tired." Yang Yi knew that if he accompanied them, the two little girls would have a dependence on him. "That won't do. The things I carry are for the whole class. Because Papa was chosen as the representative this time, I can't just be your father. I have to take care of the other children who don't have a father with them." Yang Yi patiently explained, "So, this spring outing is like an experience. Just pretend that I'm not with you. Learn to take care of yourself with the other children. Take the things that your teacher said every child should bring, and then play happily." "What about Papa?" She looked up in confusion. "Daddy is right behind you. I'll be your safest shield." Yang Yi clenched his fists and said encouragingly, "When you feel uneasy, turn around and look at your father. Then you can continue to play with your classmates with peace of mind, right?" "All right then." Although Cici still didn't understand the difference, she still inexplicably felt that her father's words made sense. Then, she would do as her father said. Lan Xian was still a little reluctant, and she muttered softly, "But, how tiring would that be? He had a lot of things to carry. So heavy." Usually, when she went to school with her backpack, it was only a short walk from the moment she got off the car to the moment she walked into the classroom. Lan Xian felt that it was very hard for her. "No, you won't. Look, the two school bags I prepared for you are very small, light, and soft." Yang Yi smiled and said, "Also, you don't have to bring a lot of things. Look, this new kettle can be kept warm. Just press it and pour the warm water over the lid. Then you can drink it." There's also a pack of dry tissues, a pack of wet tissues, an umbrella, and a few garbage bags. That's all. Then, tomorrow, you can bring the lunch that Daddy prepared for you. As for the snacks, Daddy has packed them for you. When Daddy introduced the items that he prepared for them, Shi's eyes lit up. She ran over, grabbed the two new kettles, and looked at them with great interest. The two kettles were pink in color and had the same style. More importantly, Shi's favorite snow bow's image was printed on them. That's right. These two kettles were the peripheral products that Yang Yi saw from the Sahara Publishing House and brought home directly. The movie, Frozen, would be released this summer, and these peripheral products would be released at the same time. Snowbow's big carrot nose and rabbit-like front teeth made it look extremely cute. Of course, there were slight differences between the two kettles. On one kettle, Snowbow was happily waving its twig-like hands and bouncing one of its legs. Its entire body was contorted with joy. On the other kettle, Snowbow had a shy expression and was hugging its twig-like hands in front of its body. They were both cute in their own way. She couldn't bear to let go. Lon Xien also recognized Snowbow. She also came over and admired it with she. Xien, our kettles are very similar. She said happily to Lon Xien. Yes, but which one is mine and which one is yours? Lon Xien asked. I don't know, Papa. Which one is mine and which one is Xien's? She looked at her father for help. Yang Yi smiled and said, You can discuss this among yourselves. It's the same anyway. You can take whichever one you want. It's not the same. I like both Snowbow very much. She was in a dilemma. She touched the two kettles reluctantly and then placed them side by side on the coffee table. She looked left and right, not knowing which one to choose. Xien, which one do you like? She hesitated for a while, but finally threw the question to Lon Xien. I don't know which one to choose. Lon Xien looked like she didn't know how to choose either, but she was much more straightforward than she. She said straightforwardly, Then just choose one. He heard the little girl reciting the names of the soldiers and generals. Her fingers randomly tapped on the two kettles and finally stopped on one of them. Okay, this one is mine, and this one is yours. Lon Xien picked up the shy Snowbow's kettle, and then grabbed the happy Snowbow's kettle, and stuffed it into Shishi's arms, and smiled. Okay. She was a little hesitant. She held her kettle, and looked at the kettle in Lon Xien's arms, and finally nodded in agreement. Yang Yi was next to them, and smiled as he watched them divide the items. Now you have to pack your backpacks. Put these items neatly into your backpacks, and this lunchbox as well. Tomorrow, Papa will pour water into your kettle, and put lunch in your lunchbox. But now you have to learn to pack your own things, Yang Yi said. Maybe it was a girl's nature, but she and Lon Xien didn't complain about why Papa didn't help them this time. The two little girls began to pack their backpacks excitedly. However, she and Lon Xien's packing skills were still different. Usually, Shishi's backpack was very tidy, and every book was carefully stacked in order to avoid wrinkles, but Lon Xien's was very casual. So, when Shishi was packing her backpack, she carefully took the items one by one, and imitated her father's usual way of putting them in carefully. If she felt that something didn't make sense, she would take it out and put it back again. Lon Xien, on the other hand, stuffed everything into her backpack, and the result was very messy. Lon Xien looked at Shishi's backpack, and then looked at her own. She felt that her backpack was very ugly, so she took it out and asked Shishi. Shishi packed her backpack, and from time to time, she turned her head and turned around to give Lon Xien some pointers. She even helped the clumsy Lon Xien to sort out the items in her backpack. Yang Yi, on the side, looked at the two little girls discussing in full swing, and couldn't help but show a kind smile like an old father. His hands were not idle. He packed his big suitcase for a while, and put in some handmade candies and snacks that he made in the past 2 days. Then he got up and put the guitar standing in the living room into the guitar bag. By the way, Xien, do you still remember the song I taught you before? When I teach the students to sing tomorrow, you have to lead the singing. Yang Yi asked with a smile. Chapter 1038. Ha 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 ha. A childish giggle seemed to break the silence in the bedroom. Then, a moderate vibration came from the bed, which finally woke Shishi up from her half-asleep state. The little girl raised her head that was covered by her fluffy hair, squinted her sleepy eyes, and looked at Tong Tong, who was giggling and staggering on her bed. Hee, big sister, go to sleep. Tong Tong grinned and pointed at her sister as she turned her head and said to her mother, Yes, the sun is up. Big sister, get up quickly. Don't sleep anymore. Murphy's gentle laughter reached she's ears. The little girl turned over in a daze. She rubbed her eyes and groaned as she wiggled her little butt. He didn't know if she was stretching or lazing around in bed. In any case, she hadn't come out of her daze yet. Get up quickly. Aren't you going to play with Papa today? Why are you still sleeping in bed? Don't you want to go on the spring outing? Murphy had no choice but to reach out and push her little butt. She called out again, Your Papa is already downstairs. He has prepared breakfast and other food for you. He's just waiting for you to come down. That's right. Spring outing. Today was the spring outing. Hearing the key words, the spring outing that she had been thinking about day and night and had been waiting for a week, she suddenly woke up. The little girl cried out, Aya. She hurriedly lifted the little blanket and lay on the bed like a gecko. However, she twisted her body in the direction behind her. First, her little feet slipped down, and her stomach was on the bed. When she stepped on the ground, she pushed the blanket under her stomach and stood up. After Cece brushed her teeth and washed her face, Mo Fei folded the quilt for her, and also went over to help her tidy up her hair and tie it into a beautiful hairstyle. Only then did the little girl, who had fluffy hair and sleepy face just now, went downstairs to have breakfast with a new look. Lon Xian also came over. Because she was going out to play today, she actually didn't laze in bed and woke up very early. After everything was packed, Yang Yi called out to the two girls, Put your school bags in the car. We're leaving soon. Yang Yi planned to drive Shi and Lon Xian to the school to meet with the rest of the team and then go on a spring outing together. But what was worth pondering was that their route today was actually still to play in Tingshan District. In other words, they would set off from Tingshan District and go to Wuhu District to take the bus with the rest of the group to Tingshan District for a spring outing. Then, in the afternoon, they would return from Tingshan District to the school in Wuhu District. Finally, Yang Yi would drive the two children back to Tingshan District. From the perspective of intelligence, this was indeed a very stupid idea. It would be better to just go to the destination and wait for the main force to arrive. However, wasn't the spring outing just going out to play with her classmates? The journey in between was actually part of the spring outing. Yang Yi was willing to work harder than to let Shi and Lon Xian leave the group and go on their own. However, just as Shi and Lon Xian were happily putting their lunchboxes into their school bags and preparing to carry them to the car, Tong Tong strolled over and noticed what his sisters were doing. The little fellow seemed to have sensed something as he opened his big round eyes and stared at the two sisters. Following that, he moved his short legs and eagerly followed behind the two sisters as he stepped out of the door barefooted. Luckily, Tong Tong's movements were noticed by Murphy. She quickly chased after them and saw Tong Tong standing behind the Humvee, staring blankly at his two sisters putting their school bags in the trunk. Where are you going? Murphy smiled and picked up the little guy. Tell Mom, what are you going to do? Tong Tong looked stupid, but he was not stupid at all. The little guy put one hand on his mother's shoulder and pointed at his sisters with the other. He pouted and said, Take the car. You can't take the car. Murphy smiled. Yes, I want to take the car. Tong Tong did not understand why his mother said that, but he insisted. Yang Yi was adjusting the settings in the back seat when he overheard the conversation between Tong Tong and Murphy. He got up and asked Shi and Lon Xian to move aside. He closed the trunk door and walked over. He smiled and gently touched the little guy's tender little face. Next time, Daddy will take you to the car. Yeah, my sisters have something else to do today. Next time. Murphy said. Sister, I want to play with sister. Little Momo had heard his sister's conversation today and knew that his sisters were going to play. He was a little anxious and aggrieved as he twisted in his mother's arms. He pointed at his sisters and cried out in a sobbing tone. Tong Tong, who was 1 year and 4 months old, could barely speak coherently. Although his vocabulary was still limited, he tried very hard to express himself. His sister was going to play, so he wanted to play with his sister. The little guy already had a little temper. If things did not go his way, he would probably cry and make a fuss. Shi and Lon Xian looked at each other for a while. She hesitated and whispered, "Papa, why don't we take little brother to play with us?" Little Fuchen, on the other hand, understood that his elder sister was pleading for him. His sad little face seemed to have some joy as he looked at his elder sister with smiling eyes. It was as if he felt that his elder sister's words would be effective. He was going to play with his sister. Yang Yi was happy. He rubbed Shi's little head and asked, "If you take little brother with you, what about your mother? Will she be alone at home?" "Mom. Then let's go with Mom." She said casually, but she soon thought of a problem. "Hey, but only 3 parents can go with us. Mom can't go. What should we do?" "What about Mom?" "Mom can only stay at home alone." Murphy looked at Shi and muttered in her heart, "No, we can't be special. This is the school's spring outing. How can we take so many people with us?" Yang Yi explained to Cici in a soft voice, "Although Dad also wants to take Mom and brother out to play, we can only wait until next time or find a free time for the whole family to go out and play together." "Then what about little brother?" She asked concernedly. In fact, she didn't need to worry. Murphy still had a way. She pulled Tong Tong's arm and said softly, "Okay, we don't need to go out with our sister today. Mom will take you shopping today. Let's go shopping with Auntie Xiaowan, okay?" Murphy wasn't fooling Tong Tong. She really wanted to go shopping with Mo Xiaowan. They were going to a luxury shopping mall. There were fewer people there, and the shops would give them a certain amount of protection, so it wouldn't be easy to be surrounded. "My husband is taking our daughter to the school's spring outing. Why should we wait at home? We also want to have an exciting time," Murphy thought in her heart. According to past experiences, Tong Tong loved shopping. It wasn't that he wanted to buy things, but he just wanted to play in the mall. There were so many new things that could broaden his horizons. Sure enough, after hearing his mother's words, Tong Tong made a comparison. On one side, he admired his sister who always knew a lot of things. On the other side, he had his mother, who he loved the most. On the other side, he had a rich and exciting shopping experience in his mind. The little boy finally gave in. He didn't insist. He retracted his little hand that was pointing at his sister and happily clapped with his mother. He tried hard to pronounce the words that he couldn't pronounce properly. Third cut. Shang Zhang. When Yang Yi saw that Murphy had persuaded Tong Tong, he smiled and whispered to the 2 girls, let's go before Mommy changes her mind. Otherwise, we won't be able to leave later." Yang Yi was only joking, but his hurried voice still created a tense atmosphere. "Haha, let's go." Lon Xian screamed excitedly. Her loud and clear voice covered Shi's laughter. One by one, the 2 young ladies climbed into the car and slammed the door shut. Their eyes were curved into crescents and they looked nervous. They were so cute. Chapter 1039. Wow, little fishy, you're wearing a dress. In the noisy campus environment, Shi's cheerful voice was like a small pebble thrown into the sea, unable to cause many waves. Lu Xiaoyu happily held the corner of her dress and twirled in front of Shi to show her little friend her little dress. However, she still looked at Shi, who was wearing a t-shirt and casual pants, with some regret. She complained, "Shi, why aren't you and Xian wearing skirts?" "Because my papa said that we're going to play outside, and it's not convenient to wear skirts." She blinked and then remembered. "Oh right, little fishy, you're wearing a skirt. What are you going to do?" Lu Xiaoyu looked down at her own skirt, and when she raised her head to look at Shi again, she was at a loss. They couldn't come to a conclusion on this topic, so after a while, Shi and Lu Xiaoyu changed the topic. The little girl happily turned her small backpack in front of her and carried it close to her chest. Then, she unzipped it and took out her snowbow kettle to show Lu Xiaoyu. "Little fishy, look, this is my kettle. This is Sister Aisha's good friend, Snowbow. Don't you think it's very cute?" She said happily to Lu Xiaoyu. Wow, you have a new kettle. I love this color, and it's very cute too. Lu Xiaoyu said excitedly, her eyes shining. Little fishy, let me tell you, Xinair has one too. She giggled and said to Lu Xiaoyu, who was holding her kettle is the same as mine, but Snowbow is different. Just talking about it wasn't enough, so she squeezed to Lan Xian's side with Lu Xiaoyu and asked her to show them the kettle. Lan Xian's attention was elsewhere. She turned around a little absent-mindedly and showed her small backpack to Shi so that she could take it herself. Cici didn't mind at all. She was close to Lan Xin as if they were the same person. She opened the zipper of Lan Xin's bag with ease, took out the water bottle, and began chatting with Lu Xiaoyu. Lan Xian's gaze fell on Yang Yi. No, it should be said that it landed on the large luggage bag that Yang Yi was carrying. Lan Xian had seen it with her own eyes. This morning, Mr. Yang kept stuffing a lot of delicious food into it. At this time, Yang Yi was talking with the other two parents and teacher Li Rulan. The other two parents were called Jian Liuan, and Hong Jun was a thin man, but he was quite enthusiastic. He even wanted to help Yang Yi carry the large luggage. Of course, he couldn't carry it. After trying, he was shocked by Yang Yi's strength. It's just a spring outing. We're going out to play for a day. Why do you have to bring so many things? Jian Liuan asked, puzzled. Yang Yi unzipped the bag and showed them the bags of snacks. He smiled and said, I usually make some snacks for the children at home. The children who came to play at our house before, like Lu Xiaoyu and the others, all said that they were delicious, so I thought that I would bring some for the children in the class to try. It was actually handmade snacks. Jian Liuan and Hong Jun sighed. It's really hard to believe. You're a big star, but everyone thinks that you're a chef's father. Haha, I like this title more. Yang Yi laughed. While they were talking, parents kept sending their children to gather. Li Rulan was also busy talking to them and counting the number of people. At this time, the children who had let go of their schoolwork finally revealed their naive and lively personalities. One by one, they jumped up and down, chattering away. The whole square was filled with the cheerful laughter of children from the first to third grades. Some of the children were braver, like Chan Yuxuan. Under the encouragement of the other children, he mustered up his courage and approached the adults. Uncle, what is this? Chen Yuxuan raised his head and asked in a hoarse voice. He was pointing at the guitar bag on Yang Yi's back. This? Yang Yi smiled. However, before he could answer, a child next to him interrupted. Wang Lei had just been sent over by his father and was standing next to him. He felt that he had seen it before and said excitedly, I know, this is a gun. There are many parts inside, and when assembled, it can become a very long sniper rifle. I've seen it in movies. Hearing Wang Lei's words, Chan Yuxuan was surprised and pleasantly surprised. His eyes widened and he looked at Yang Yi's guitar bag with anticipation. It was as if he could really see a big gun inside. There's really a gun? After hearing this, more boys excitedly gathered around. They seemed to have forgotten their fear of the tall and big Yang Yi. Yang Yi listened to these children's naive words and couldn't help but laugh. How can it be a gun? Who would bring a gun to a spring outing? Yang Yi smiled and patted Wang Lei's head. This is a guitar. Oh, I also know about the guitar. Wang Lei continued to excitedly explain to the other students as if he was showing off his knowledge. Just as Yang Yi was surrounded by a group of curious boys, she squeezed over with Lu Xiaoyu. She pulled the shoulder strap of her backpack with one hand and held her father's hand with the other. She excitedly said, Papa, little fishy also wants a kettle. Do we still have Snowbow's kettle? This way, little fishy, me, and Xinair will all have a good-looking kettle. Lu Xiaoyu, who was beside her little friend, nodded her little head and looked at Yang Yi expectantly. A kettle? That will have to wait until next week. Uncle doesn't have one now. Next week, I'll ask Shi to bring it to school for you, okay? Yang Yi looked at Lu Xiaoyu and said with a smile. Okay. Thank you, Uncle. Lu Xiaoyu nodded obediently. She was bursting with joy as she held Shi's hand. The two girls ran away and went to the other side to whisper to each other. After the assembly, all the teachers, children, and 3 accompanying parents of the first grade class 3 boarded the bus that belonged to their class. Every class had a bus, but the bus fleet was a little large and needed to be driven out of the school gate one by one. While waiting, Hong Jun and Jian Liuan helped Yang Yi distribute the first batch of small handmade snacks. Every child had a bag of orange juice soft candies with snowflakes painted on them. Each bag contained 3 orange juice soft candies. In addition, there was also a bag of small steamed buns mixed with various flavors such as chocolate, matcha, milk, and so on, the kind of small steamed buns. All of them were handmade by Yang Yi over the past few days. They tasted very good and had been verified by Lan Xian. Wow! While the snacks were being distributed, the children in the bus made a big fuss. Those who received the snacks first were overjoyed and couldn't wait to open them and try them. As they ate, they made a big fuss again. It smells so good. It's super delicious. As for those who hadn't received the snacks yet, the children sitting in the back couldn't help but stand up and look around. They were so hungry that they swallowed their saliva. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.